a young man, Yanagi Hayato, finds himself in a surreal confrontation. He stands before a colossal, horned beast, bleeding but defiant. The creature, identified as Mars, lets out a guttural roar. In a daze, Hayato offers it tea, then abruptly remembers he is going to be late, the bizarre, dreamlike sequence shattering. The scene shifts to the mundane reality of a classroom at Cyan High School. A teacher lectures at the front of the room, writing a formula on the chalkboard while students sit at their desks. Within this classroom, however, first-year student Yanagi Hayato is completely oblivious, fast asleep on his desk with a trail of drool. His slumber is violently interrupted as the teacher grabs him by the hair. Startled, Hayato wonders aloud if he's at school or a pet shop. The teacher, enraged that Hayato called him by his nickname, Tsurasaki, snaps and bellows for him to get out into the hall. As he's being disciplined, other students watch. 1. Tanaka Ryo smirks and comments that this is why the Zeros are such a pain. Hayato glances back, a flicker of confusion on his face, as another student realizes with dread that he accidentally called the teacher by his nickname. Another classmate with spiky hair scoffs, calling it a joke that Hayato is in the same class as ability users. The world's history is then laid bare. 100 years ago, people with supernatural powers began to appear, and around the same time, so did elusive aberrant monsters. This new reality dictated that the only way to kill these monsters was with the powers of an ability user. In response, the government formed specialized counter-organizations, like the Special Countermeasures Unit, whose members work tirelessly to exterminate the monstrous threat. Back in the present day at Cyan High, the school bell chimes, echoing across the grounds. The sound of the bell signals not freedom, but another confrontation for Hayato. The spiky-haired student and his friends corner him, calling him a loser and demanding he go fetch them some drinks. He then demonstrates his power, conjuring a swirling ball of fire in his palm. The bully reveals his score is 5,058 and declares that a powerless Zero, like Hayato, should just accept his place as a slave, leaving Hayato with a chilling, rhetorical question. You wouldn't say no, would you? He points a finger at his tormentor, declaring that powers are not meant for such abuse and threatening to report him to a teacher. The threat is met with fury. The bully's hand erupts in flame directly in front of Hayato's face as he snarls that he will really blast him. Sometime later, Hayato stands alone at a vending machine, reflecting on the world's hierarchy. He recalls that the bully score of 5,058 is considered high for their school, yet members of the elite Special Countermeasures Unit possess scores in the tens or even hundreds of thousands. In a world where nearly everyone has an ability, he considers his own score of 0 to be useless and unwanted, distractedly stacking cans as he contemplates his place. His thoughts conclude with the harsh reality that a powerless person is nothing more than an object of contempt. Having been forced to run an errand, he calls out to his classmates that he has brought their drinks and left them on the desk. Having completed the errand, Hayato finally arrives home, announcing his return as he opens the door. Inside, his sister, Yanagi Ao, welcomes him from the couch where she's relaxing and eating a snack. He enters the living room, still carrying some of the drinks. Ao notices them, remarking that they look tasty and asking if she can have one. Hayato agrees, adding that they are delicious. As he grabs a drink for himself from the refrigerator, Ao asks how his day at school was. He gives a non-committal answer that it was okay, then asks about her. He dismisses his day as just the usual, getting chewed out by the popular kids and being sent on their errands, sarcastically calling it the perfect high school life. Ao, however, looks up with genuine concern, exclaiming that his situation is not perfect at all. The young man tries to brush off her worry with a wink, insisting his life is nothing to complain about. His smile fades as Ao's serious voice cuts through his facade, asking if it isn't time he stopped hiding it and told them. He deflects his sister's serious accusation, claiming he will simply go to his room and watch videos. With a placid smile, he adds that as long as he has his fluffy friends, images of cute animals, to cheer him up, he is okay. His attempt to dismiss her concerns fails. Ao looks at him, her expression troubled, and tells him that seeing him act that way only worries her more. She continues, urging him to just tell everyone the truth. She theorizes that his score only shows up as 0 because his ability is so insanely powerful that it glitches the system, resulting in a simple display error. Cornered, he finally reveals the secret. His ability is called Transcendent, a power that allows him to sublimate himself into any other existence, as long as certain conditions are met. He explains his rationale for the secrecy. In their world, a person's score is everything. If word got out that a 0 actually possessed power, it would cause absolute chaos, and she would be dragged into the resulting mess just for being his sister. Ao quietly insists that she would be fine, but Hayato remains firm. He states that her safety is precisely why he is better off being perceived as powerless. His expression softens as he delivers his final point. In a world as crazy as theirs, he declares, the peace of his family is the most important thing. Shifting the tone, he tells her not to be so serious, reminding her that he's already confided in her. Ao relents, agreeing that she understands, but asks him not to push himself too hard. To prove his point, Hayato grins and shows her his phone, displaying a picture of a fluffy dog named Sally. He declares that he has something to live for, so he's fine, and cheerfully announces he has a date with Sally at the shopping mall tomorrow. As Ao walks away, her cheeks flush. She thinks to herself with giddy excitement, already wondering what they should talk about on this upcoming date. She smiles, content with the thought that as long as her brother is happy, that's all that matters. She asks someone named Sally to take care of him, just as a breaking news report begins to flash on a nearby screen. The news announces that a D-rank monster has appeared near a shopping mall. The area is now an evacuation zone, and entry is prohibited. Among the crowd held back by the authorities stands Hayato, his gaze fixed on the cordoned-off building. He approaches a member of the Special Countermeasures Unit, who reports to a colleague that the evacuation of everyone inside the mall is complete. Hearing this, Hayato looks downcast, asking for confirmation that everyone truly got out. Frustrated, he laments that this is cruel, as he had been looking forward to this day all week. Just then, an explosion erupts from the mall's entrance. Hayato's demeanor shifts instantly as he urgently asks the officer if the animals in the pet shop were evacuated, but the man has no information on that. The sudden blast sends the crowd reeling in panic. One of the onlookers shouts that the explosion felt like it came from inside the mall itself. His expression hardens at this information. Closing his eyes, Hayato decides he has to see for himself what is happening inside. He focuses his senses, peering past the physical walls to perceive a massive, glowing eye within the darkness. He realizes with a start that there's another monster inside, and its aura is on a completely different level than the one outside. As his senses probe deeper, he makes a horrifying discovery. There is someone near the monster. A child. The officer beside him remains oblivious to the unfolding internal crisis. Without a word, he ducks under the yellow caution tape, decisively stepping past the established perimeter and into the danger zone. Inside the ruined structure, a colossal, clawed foot slams into the ground, narrowly missing a small girl who stands alone and terrified amidst the debris. She stands frozen in terror, the realization hitting her with full force. She is facing a monster. Before her, a colossal, horned beast roars, its presence shattering the surrounding structure and filling the air with dust and debris. In response to her presence, the cannons on the creature's back begin to glow, firing a volley of projectiles directly at her. The projectiles streak through the air. Just as they are about to strike the terrified child, Hayato appears in a blur of motion, tackling her out of the path of destruction. The projectiles detonate violently against the floor where she had been standing moments before. He kneels beside her, relieved. He asks if she is hurt and urges her to join the others who have evacuated outside. As she runs off, thanking him, he turns his full attention to the beast. He identifies it as Ravana, a B-rank, city-destroying level monster, and wonders who is controlling the orbs floating around its body. His expression darkens with fury. He had plans to talk with Sally, his precious friend and source of comfort, until closing time. Angered that this creature dared to interrupt his moment of peace, he glares at Ravana and tells it to prepare itself. As he focuses his will, a powerful, spectral warrior clad in armor materializes behind him, radiating an immense aura. Hayato speaks a single name, an invocation, Mars. The power of the invocation erupts from him in a violent shockwave, slamming into Ravana and sending the massive beast stumbling backward. The monster reels in surprise, its eyes wide. It looks back to where Hayato was standing, only to find the space now empty. In that same instant, he reappears, having closed the distance to land directly on Ravana's head. Realizing the Special Countermeasures Unit will arrive soon, he decides to end the fight quickly, raising his hand to deliver a decisive blow. He clenches his fist, feeling the power surge through him. He internally clarifies the nature of his ability. Mars is one of the gods he is able to become, a transformation that drastically enhances his physical abilities and sharpens his five senses. He reflects on the nature of his ability, Transcender. Among the powerful existences he can sublimate into, even gods are included, allowing him to wield their very authority. Unleashing this divine power, he drives his fist forward in a devastating attack he names Star-Piercing, aimed directly at the monster before him. The blow connects with a searing hiss. Ravana lets out a choked roar as the glowing fist plunges deep into its torso. The energy erupts from the creature's back, blowing a gaping, smoldering hole clean through its body. The colossal beast collapses amidst the rubble, utterly destroyed. Standing in the aftermath, his power receded and his normal appearance restored. Hayato looks at the fallen monster and wonders if perhaps he overdid it. He notes the growing noise from outside and decides he should leave. But before he can move, several figures land silently on the ground before him, blocking his path. He looks up, startled, to see a squad of uniformed women. One points him out, while another remarks with confusion that the evacuation of the mall was supposed to be complete. Their attention shifts to the defeated monster. The girl with the ponytail notes with shock that a B-rank monster was taken down in a single blow. They're the monster-slaying specialists, the Special Countermeasures Unit, identified by the dragon crest on their chests. The squad's focus returns to Hayato. A woman with long dark hair sternly asks if he's a civilian left behind. Immediately, the girl with the ponytail presses him, asking if he was the one who defeated the monster. Hayato begins to stammer, caught completely off guard. Before he can formulate an answer, the girl with the ponytail draws two short swords. With a confident smile, she points them at him and declares, "We are taking you into custody." Standing over the corpse of a B-rank monster felled in a single blow, Yanagi Hayato finds himself confronted by three armed women. With his hands raised in a non-threatening gesture, he listens as one of them questions his identity. Is he merely a civilian left behind, or was he the one responsible for the creature's demise? Before he can answer, the most energetic of the trio, a girl with a high ponytail, leaps forward with her twin blades crossed. With fierce determination in her eyes, she declares that they are taking him into custody. Her companions observe from a distance. The one with long, dark hair readies her own sword, stating she will provide backup. The third member of their squad crosses her arms, casually betting that he is just a civilian who was left behind. Hayato attempts to de-escalate, pleading for them to wait and just look at something he has. His plea is ignored. The girl with the twin blades tells her teammates to stay back, confident she can handle the situation herself. In a flash, she dashes past him with blinding speed. She reappears instantly behind him, her blades held ready but not touching him, having detected no suspicious movements. Hayato is stunned, wondering if she teleported. He tries to explain that he was simply going to show them the ability score on his phone. His words give her pause. The girl expresses shock, comparing him to a protected species and identifying him as unawakened. She pulls out a small scanning device, deciding to get a more accurate measurement. As she aims the device, her calm squad mate approaches, suggesting their own scanner is more accurate. The dark-haired swordswoman remarks that her impulsive teammate seems to have lost her composure for a moment. The third member confirms her initial theory, stating he's just a straggler who got left behind. Hearing this, the girl with the ponytail turns to Hayato with a playful wink and offers her apologies, admitting one can't always tell just by looking. She then gives a proper, formal introduction. She is Hattori Suzuna, a member of the Special Countermeasures Unit. Her companions follow her lead. The stoic swordswoman introduces herself as Kirasaka Ryoko, and the composed analyst states her name is Serenji Reika. Hattori Suzuna, the girl with the ponytail, cheerfully pats Yanagi Hayato on the arm. She compliments his composure, remarking that he has nerves of steel, as most people would be a mess after witnessing such an event. As she does, Hayato flinches slightly. Suzuna then takes his hand in both of hers, her expression turning more earnest, while her dark-haired companion, Kirasaka Ryoko, observes silently from behind. She looks at him with a bright, encouraging smile, reassuring him that it's perfectly fine if his ability score is 0. She expresses her certainty that his powers will awaken one day. Releasing his hand, she turns back to her squad. She informs Hayato that they will now investigate the scene and might need his testimony later, before asking for his name. He stammers a quiet thank you in response. He then introduces himself as Yanagi Hayato. Suzuna beams, repeating his name to commit it to memory and thanking him. As he turns to leave, Suzuna calls out a cheerful warning to be careful of the scattered rubble. Her two squad mates watch him depart, their expressions more reserved. He walks away from the destruction, breathing a sigh of relief. He reflects internally that it was a close call, and the last thing he wants is to get involved in the affairs of the Special Countermeasures Unit. He continues through the ruined street, considering himself lucky that they let him go simply because of his 0 score. The thought leaves a bitter taste. He finds this society's obsession with scores to be deeply flawed. His thoughts drift from his frustration with society to the encounter itself. A small, private thought crosses his mind as he glances back at the destruction. The girl, Hattori, was rather cute. Later, back at school, the relative peace is broken. Tanaka Ryo confronts Hayato on the school rooftop, angrily holding up a can. He shouts that Hayato brought him cider instead of soda, and when Hayato questions the difference, Tanaka insists that soda is unsweetened while cider is sweet. His attempt to de-escalate by offering to buy a new drink is met with scorn. Tanaka Ryo, the student with the bowl cut, mocks him, declaring that a 0 like him will never get a girlfriend and shouldn't sweat the small stuff. His spiky-haired associate questions who Hayato thinks he is, while Hayato remains silent, his expression unreadable. As Hayato walks away, the three bullies watch him go. The spiky-haired one suggests they should demolish him. His companion agrees, stating it's time someone put him back in his place. Tanaka adds that the piece of trash has been getting a little bold lately. A sinister smile spreads across Tanaka's face as he internally savors the idea. Demolish him, huh? He thinks to himself. He pulls out his phone, already setting a plan in motion. He informs his associate that this time, he's having someone else handle it. When asked who, Tanaka specifies that the abandoned warehouse would be the perfect location, and that he's hiring a crew that doesn't know the meaning of mercy. The conversation takes a more personal turn as his other associate mentions that Hayato has a little sister. Tanaka confirms this, noting that he's heard she is brilliant and cute, the total opposite of her brother. The spiky-haired bully realizes their only remaining problem is figuring out how to make Hayato show up. Just then, their target reappears, holding out a canned drink. "I brought your drink," Hayato says plainly. Tanaka looks over, a flicker of surprise crossing his smug face. But their reaction is unsettling. As the group walks away, Tanaka mockingly raises the can and says thanks. Hayato is left standing alone, a sense of unease washing over him. Something feels off. He questions why they would thank him. The feeling of unease follows him on his walk home through a quiet residential street. Noticing the darkening sky, he thinks to himself that it looks like rain and he should hurry. His thoughts are interrupted by a buzz from his phone. He pulls it out to see a notification for a class group call and wonders if it's just a class announcement. He looks closer, his confusion mounting. The call is from Tanaka Ryo, whom he mentally identifies as party boy number 1. He realizes Tanaka is telling him to come to a warehouse and has even sent an accompanying image. His phone rings, and he answers with frantic urgency, his voice tight. He demands to know if his sister, Ao, is okay and where she is right now. She answers from the comfort of their home, confused by his tone. She confirms she's at home and asks if something has happened. Hayato audibly relaxes, stating that as long as she's okay, that's all that matters. Oblivious to his distress, Ao smiles brightly into the phone. She reminds him that she made his favorite meal for dinner and urges him to hurry home. He forces a calm reply, telling her he's looking forward to it before hanging up. As he walks toward his destination, the grim reality sets in. The photo of Ao was a clear threat. If he doesn't go to the warehouse, they will go after her. His steps are heavy on the pavement. A cold realization dawns on him. They were the ones who crossed the line first. His expression hardens into a mask of cold fury. He makes a silent, resolute vow. He will not let them get away with this. Meanwhile, outside the designated warehouse, the leader of the hired crew gloats. He declares that getting paid 300,000 yen just to rough up a single kid is easy money. Inside, his associates discuss the job. One thug remarks that their client, the son of the National Police Agency's commissioner, knows how to spend his money, having paid well for a previous robbery. Another reveals their target is an unawakened, pathetic for being unable to fight back. A third thug with long hair dismisses the boy, saying he's more interested in his sister. Just as the long-haired thug makes a vulgar threat against Ao, another spots Hayato's arrival. Suddenly, a sharp cracking sound fills the air as fissures spiderweb across the ground and up the threatening thug's arm. The thugs stare in abject terror. Where Hayato once stood, a monstrous, demonic figure now looms, its arms transformed into dripping blades. They can only stammer in disbelief, recognizing it as a monster and noting its terrifying new limbs. The monstrous creature, born from Hayato's rage, descended upon his assailants. With bladed arms swinging, it met the thug's bravado with brutal finality, their pained cries lost in the violence of the attack. Elsewhere in the city, another, different kind of horror made its presence known. A sleek, black figure stood silently over a scene of complete devastation, its victims lying dismembered at its feet. This was a monster with the power to destroy an entire region, or perhaps even multiple states. In that moment, a true catastrophe was taking its first breath. It was classified as an A-rank threat. Its designated name, Ritter, the name carried a heavy legacy, tied to the legend of the demon who slaughtered 500,000 humans. Meanwhile, walking down a city street, Hayato Tsurasaki seemed oblivious. As sirens wailed in the distance, his phone buzzed, displaying an alert for a monster appearance. He glanced at the screen, his expression unconcerned. He registered the threat level, an A rank, and noted that the location was quite close. He let out a small sigh, pocketing his phone and continuing on his way. He just hoped he wouldn't run into it. Under a steady downpour, Yanagi Hayato walks alone down a deserted city street, the path slick with rain reflecting the sterile lights of the surrounding buildings. He continues on, his thoughts consumed by the escalating monster threat. He notes that a B-rank Ravana has just appeared, and now there are reports of an A-rank monster as well. His expression grows more serious as he considers the pattern. Monsters are classified from F to SSS rank, and it seems the high-ranking ones are now appearing one after another. This ranking system is a grim reality. While most combat-type ability users can defeat an F rank, a single SSS rank entity possesses enough power to trigger a global crisis. Suddenly, Hayato freezes, his eyes widening in alarm as an unnerving sensation prickles his senses. He follows the feeling, his steps now purposeful. A strange, metallic odor grows stronger, pulling him toward a nearby warehouse. The smell is deeply wrong, and a sense of dread builds within him. Rounding a corner, he discovers the source. The overwhelming stench is the smell of blood, emanating from a horrifying scene of carnage where dozens of bodies lie motionless in the rain. His eyes narrow, his face a mask of grim resolve as he takes in the massacre. "This is just awful," he states, his voice low and steady. In a blur of motion, an unseen attacker strikes. Hayato hurls himself aside, narrowly dodging a blow that pulverizes the ground. He catches his breath, shaken by the close call. A second's delay would have been fatal. He looks up to confront his assailant, a sleek, black humanoid with glowing eyes. He recognizes the creature instantly. It's a Ritter. His mind flashes to the historical records. The first sighting in London 70 years ago, the dozens of ability users needed to defeat it, and the nearly 500,000 casualties it left in its wake. He was no stranger to pain. His mind flashed back to a recent, grueling battle against a minotaur known as Ravana, a creature whose historical appearance was the very catalyst for humanity to begin training ability users. He recalled the agonizing fight, lamenting his terrible luck and wanting only to get it over with so he could receive a purification. That wasn't his only trial. He also remembered the sudden, overwhelming appearance of the warrior known as Mars, whose fiery assault had caught him completely off guard. The warrior's attack was a blinding explosion of force, yet even as he struggled to withstand it, his thoughts drifted to the simple promise of his sister Ao's home-cooked meal waiting for him. The memory of these fights fueled his resolve. He knew he had to end things quickly and head home. With a determined leap, he brought his power down on his foe. Meanwhile, on a nearby rooftop, a special countermeasures unit was closing in. Hattori Suzuna commented that their target should be right around there. Suddenly, Kurosaka Ryoko, peering through binoculars, spotted something and pointed it out to the others. Through the lenses, the scene snapped into focus, returning to the present. Ryoko was shocked to see Hayato standing before the deadly Ritter, wondering aloud what had happened to him. On the ground, Hayato calmly inspected his hand, noticing a small cut. His observation was interrupted by the sudden materialization of a new entity. A colossal, hooded figure with an immense, muscular form now towered over the battlefield. The giant figure casually tossed a large rock, which crashed heavily onto the pavement nearby. The simple, almost crude action left Hayato bewildered. A rock? He turned his attention back to the colossal figure, noticing the defeated body of the Ravana monster from his earlier battle lying nearby. He realized this new creature was some kind of ability user, a monster for which he possessed no data. Observing the monstrous Ritter, Hayato analyzes its last move. He realizes it swapped its position with a nearby rock, its ability likely being some form of exchange. Closing his eyes to concentrate, he focuses on the sound, trying to anticipate its next teleportation. A faint noise gives it away, and he pivots, shouting there, as he smashes his fist into a floating crystal. His punch shatters the crystal, but the creature is gone. To his horror, he understands it was another exchange. The Ritter has already reappeared directly behind him, its bladed arm slashing down and drawing blood. Staggering from a blow, Hayato finds himself surrounded by a cage of glowing, crystalline rocks that have erupted from the ground. He grits his teeth, admitting to himself that he underestimated his opponent. "You're good," he concedes internally. A voice echoes around him, confirming his assessment, which is why, it states coldly, "You're done for." In response, Hayato's expression hardens with resolve. "I won't hold back anymore," he vows. A vision flashes, the colossal monster Ravana being utterly annihilated as the words "phase ascension" are spoken. Then, from Hayato's own lips, comes a single command: awaken. The scene shifts to a piercing gaze from a pair of intense, pupil-less eyes. A name hangs in the air, spoken with authority: Mars. This warrior, Mars, stands ready for battle, his long hair flowing wildly as an aura of immense power radiates from him and his massive blade. He is identified as Mars, with the alias Gladius. A true warrior without equal, his ferocity in battle is described as the very embodiment of madness. Cutting back to the present, the sleek black Ritter stands poised, ready to strike again. However, a new challenger now stands before it. A spiky-haired student with a defiant look and a bleeding lip gestures dismissively. "You're nothing," he scoffs, beckoning the monster forward. "Bring it on." Amidst the rubble of a fierce battle, Yanagi Hayato stands his ground, facing the sleek, black monster known as Ritter. The creature's arm, a sharpened blade, is poised to strike, while in the background, Hattori Suzuna watches the tense standoff. He looks upon the menacing creature with an unnerving calm, dismissing it as nothing. With a defiant gesture, Hayato challenges it directly. "Bring it on." In response to the taunt, Ritter lunges forward, its bladed arm slashing through the air as it simultaneously fires a sphere of dark energy that screams towards Hayato. A tremendous explosion of force erupts as Hayato meets the attack not with a weapon, but with his bare fist, shattering the energy blast and the monster's assault in a single, concussive impact. The aftermath reveals Ritter's body cleanly bisected at the waist. Hayato stands over the fallen creature and offers a casual apology. "Whoops. My bad," adding that once he cuts loose, he finds it difficult to hold back. His nonchalance vanishes as he turns in surprise. The severed upper torso of the monster begins to bubble and froth, its form violently shifting as it begins to reform itself. He watches as the grotesque flesh rapidly knits back together, a look of slight annoyance crossing his face as he identifies the creature's ability. Regeneration. With its body fully restored, Ritter lets out a silent, visceral snarl. It immediately lunges at Hayato again, its bladed arm raised for another deadly strike. Facing the relentless foe, Hayato's hand clenches into a tight fist as power visibly swirls around it. He understands what is required. If that's the case, he murmurs, his resolve hardening. "Then I'll just have to erase every last speck of you." With this declaration, he drives his fist into the monster's chest, unleashing a blow meant not just to defeat, but to utterly annihilate. He unleashes his technique, the Fist of Annihilation. A colossal, spectral warrior materializes behind him, its punch mirroring his own and releasing a devastating wave of energy that completely obliterates the monster. As the blinding light subsides, the spectral form dissipates into embers. He stands perfectly still, his expression calm and composed as the afterimage of his immense power fades away. His composure breaks, however, replaced by a look of irritation. "Damn, what a nuisance," he mutters, his focus already shifting from the battle. With no time to waste, he breaks into a sprint through the rain-slicked streets. He knows he has to get to the warehouse quickly. He soon arrives at the warehouse district, his pace quickening as he approaches a specific building. He wonders if the party boy is still around. Upon entering, he is met with a gruesome sight. A body lies on the floor, severed at the waist. "What a slaughter," he observes grimly, concluding that the Ritter monster had indeed made it this far. His gaze sweeps across the room, revealing more fallen figures scattered on ground. He realizes he was too late after all, noting that the party boy isn't there. Just then, his phone vibrates. It's a message from his sister, Ao. She's angry, asking where he is and complaining that the dinner she made is getting cold. He has a sudden realization. She did say she was cooking. Spurred on by the message, he turns to leave, now in a hurry to get home. But as he runs past the carnage, a voice calls out from behind him, "Long time no see." He skids to a halt, his eyes wide with surprise and recognition. He turns back toward the source of the voice, his own words catching in his throat as he begins, "You're..." The figures who had stopped him were three young women in matching dark uniforms, identifying themselves as the Special Countermeasures Unit. One had long, dark hair and a serious demeanor. Another, a high ponytail tied with a large bow, radiated energy. The third stood quietly, her hair in a thick braid over her shoulder. He stood frozen for a moment before his eyes landed on the energetic one. A flicker of recognition crossed his face as he hesitantly confirmed her identity as Ms. Hattori. She stepped forward from her group, a hopeful expression on her face, and asked if he remembered her. Her face lit up with a brilliant, joyful smile. She exclaimed that he was right. He had remembered her, and the confirmation made her incredibly happy. Her unrestrained happiness left him momentarily flustered, a blush creeping onto his face as he thought to himself how cute she was. Recovering slightly, he nervously asked why they were all there. He quickly composed himself, venturing a guess. He asked if they were perhaps looking for the A-rank monster, adding that it didn't seem to be there anymore. Her cheerful denial caught him off guard. With a bright smile, Hattori corrected him, stating that they hadn't come for the monster. They had come looking for him, which only deepened his confusion. She leaned in closer, her voice filled with excitement as she praised him for completely blowing the Ritter to pieces, calling it amazing. She added that she had never seen an ability that could turn someone's hair pure white like his had. He tried to brush off her words, feigning ignorance and asking what she was talking about. He attempted to excuse himself, stating that his sister was waiting for him. His attempt to leave was cut short as the long-haired woman, Kurosaka Ryoko, stepped into his path. She held up a small, cylindrical device and coldly informed him that she had taken the liberty of recording his fight with the Ritter, leaving him stunned. She continued, her gaze unwavering, explaining that the results were conclusive. Their unit maintains a massive database for their missions, and when they ran a facial analysis on the footage, it identified him as Yanagi Hayato, a first year at Sein High School. As she spoke, Hattori held up the device, confirming they had the evidence. He watches as one of the unit members, Sarenji Reika, holds up a small device. A 0 flashes on its screen. She announces that, just as she suspected, he is an unawakened individual with a score of 0. He stares back at Sarenji, asking what exactly she and her group are. She calmly explains that while his score is 0, it's not entirely unheard of for someone in his situation to still possess an ability. Before he can process this, Hattori Suzuna steps forward, flanked by the silent Kurosaka Ryoko. Suzuna chides her companions, reminding them that they didn't come here just to put him on the spot. She then closes the distance in an instant, getting right in Hayato's face and startling him. With fiery determination, she declares that it would be a crime to let an ability like his go to waste. Her intense expression softens into an earnest smile. She explains that even within their own ranks, only a handful of elites are capable of taking down an A-rank monster single-handedly. Her words strike him, and a bead of sweat forms on his temple. Looking him directly in the eyes, she addresses him by name, asking Hayato to lend them his strength. She leans in closer, her voice filled with urgency and passion. She makes her formal request. They need him in the Special Countermeasures Unit. The directness of the demand stuns him into stammering. Me? In the Special Countermeasures Unit? Seeing his shock, Suzuna pulls back and softens her tone, assuring him that he doesn't have to provide an answer right away. With a sudden shift in demeanor, she cheerfully presses a slip of paper into his hand. She explains it's her personal number and email, telling him to let her know his decision. Waving goodbye, she adds that she'll be waiting for his yes. With their message delivered, the 3 unit members turn and jog away down the corridor, leaving a stunned Hayato standing alone, clutching the contact information. He stood alone in the cavernous, silent warehouse, the dust settling in a beam of light. The chaos of moments before had vanished, leaving him to contemplate the small, folded piece of paper in his hand. His fingers traced the edges of the paper as a single, overwhelming question echoed in his mind. Was this really happening? For the first time in his entire life, the realization struck him, a blush creeping up his neck as his eyes widened. A girl had actually given him her number. The monumental weight of a life-or-death decision he faced was momentarily eclipsed by this simple, unprecedented event. As dusk settles over a residential neighborhood, a public address system announces the confirmed annihilation of the A-rank monster. With the threat gone, the evacuation order is officially lifted. Amidst the calm, Yanagi Hayato walks down the street, heading home. As he walks, his attention is fixed on his phone. He has just finished saving the contact details for Hattori Suzuna, including her mobile number and email address. He confirms to himself that everything is saved. He arrives at his front gate, marked with the nameplate Yanagi. Clutching the phone to his chest, a look of pure bliss spreads across his face. He realizes with excitement that this is the first time he has ever saved the contact information of someone outside his family, and a girl at that. His joyful reverie is abruptly shattered by a sound coming from inside his house, causing him to freeze with a questioning look. He cautiously opens the front door, announcing his arrival. "I'm home," he calls out, then asks if his mother and the others have returned. His question is answered by a shocking sight. At his dining table sits his sister, Ao, who welcomes him back, and beside her is Hattori Suzuna, who cheerfully apologizes for the intrusion. Hayato is left speechless, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his cheek. Suzuna, holding a spoon and winking playfully, declares that she came to hear his answer. Stunned, Hayato can only shout her name in disbelief. He gestures emphatically, pointing out that they had just seen each other. From her seat at the table, Suzuna explains that she was simply too excited to sit still and wait for his decision. As Hayato struggles to respond, his sister Ao leans in and asks where he met such a cute girl. He stammers that it's a long story, internally marveling at how well Suzuna is already fitting in and questioning why she's having dinner with his sister. Ao confirms with a simple yep that Suzuna is waiting for his answer. Suzuna then addresses Hayato directly, suggesting he eat first so they can talk. His sister chimes in, asking if there's any food left for him. His sister, Ao, wearing a polka-dot apron, tells him she will heat up dinner and that he should go get changed. He readily agrees. As he heads up the stairs, he reflects on how surprised he was by the situation. From the dining room, Suzuna cheerfully calls out that she will be waiting for him. He continues on his way, a bead of sweat on his cheek as he internally remarks on Suzuna's wild nature, finding it unbelievable that she came all the way to his home. Still, he considers that he should probably be grateful, as his sister Ao seemed to be having a good time. He reaches his bedroom door and turns the handle. The following day, under a clear sky, the Yanagi residence stands quiet. Inside, Hayato awakens with a start, realizing from the clock that it is already past noon. He groggily concludes that he must have passed out from exhaustion right after changing his clothes the previous night. He makes his way into the living area and spots a note left on the table. Picking it up, he sees it is addressed to him from his sister. He begins to read. The note from Ao expresses concern for his exhaustion and reveals that after he went to bed, she heard everything from Suzuna, including the details about the creature known as the Ritter. As he splashes cool water on his face in the bathroom, he continues to process his sister's words. She knows about his power and about Suzuna's invitation for him to join the Special Countermeasures Unit. The note concludes by informing him that she has already called his school to report his absence, ordering him to stay home and rest until he is fully recovered. He leans against a chair, taking in the full weight of the situation. He sat at home, contemplating his sister's note. He now understood. Ao had heard about the invitation to join the Special Countermeasures Unit, a government-led task force. The risks of joining weighed heavily on him. He knew the survival rate for their missions was a grim 70%. In exchange for such danger, however, the pay was substantial, enough to change a family's life. But it wasn't just about the money. The members of the unit were admired, even envied, showered with praise by the public. They were beacons of hope for the people. As he considered this public adoration, the conflict within him grew. Becoming a member had its perks, but it also came at a steep price. His primary concern surfaced. If he were to join, would it bring trouble to Ao? The image of his sister's happy, smiling face filled his mind. He couldn't bear the thought of being the one to wipe that smile away. His troubled thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a sound from the entryway. He moved to the door, calling out to see who was there, a look of surprise jolting him. Standing on his doorstep was a familiar face in an unfamiliar guise. "Ms. Hattori," he stammered. It was indeed Suzuna, who greeted him cheerfully. He was taken aback, realizing she gave off a completely different vibe in her casual clothes. She began by apologizing for the events of the previous day, but he quickly interjected, insisting that he was the one who should be sorry for having fallen asleep. With the apologies exchanged, he leaned against the railing, curiosity getting the better of him. He asked what brought her to his home today. Her response was not what he expected. With a bright expression, she asked if he wanted to go to Ao's middle school with her, leaving him utterly bewildered. He walked stiffly beside Suzuna, his heart pounding. He had never walked side by side with a girl other than his sister, Ao, before, and the simple act left him flustered as they moved down the city street. A sudden thought struck him as he glanced at her. He wondered if, from an outsider's perspective, they might look like a couple right now. Suzuna, noticing his expression, simply replied, "Oh, is that so?" She then added that she had a great time talking with Ao the day before. A wave of relief washed over Hayato, who concluded that good things must happen if you live long enough. She turned to him with a bright smile, adding that his sister, Ao, had said she was backing him for the unit. Hayato clarified her statement. He explained that what Ao really wished for was for him to stop hiding his powers. His words hung in the air for a moment. Suzuna paused, her expression turning serious as she asked if the reason he was hiding them was related to that incident. His gaze hardened. He confirmed her suspicion with 4 chilling words. The Witch of Perth. The name conjured a memory of tragedy. A knight clad in jet black armor had suddenly appeared beside an unawakened girl with a score of 0. Without warning, the knight annihilated the metropolis of Perth, a city with a population of 2 million. The people, terrified, blamed the girl who brought about the catastrophe, branding her a witch. Ever since that day, a grim precedent was set. Anyone with a score of 0 who possessed an ability was deemed a threat. This was Hayato's fear. For his sister Ao's sake, he felt he could never let anyone know he had powers. Suzuna listened, then challenged his logic. She reminded him that if he joined the unit, it was a guarantee the whole world would find out. With a searching gaze, she asked him directly, "Do you really think the world could praise someone like me?" She looks at Hayato, who is visibly startled, and concedes that while she doesn't know what the future holds, she has a different idea. With a determined clench of her fist, she declares that she knows he has it in him. If the world won't praise him, she insists, then he simply has to become so incredible that they have no choice but to do so. Her words strike him with the force of a revelation. The thought had never even crossed his mind. He had never seen any other way to think about his situation. The idea of becoming undeniably great echoes as he stares, a small smile playing on Suzuna's lips. Their conversation takes place on a street near Cyan Middle School, just as students in their uniforms begin to file out of the gates for the day. As they watch the crowd, Suzuna gives a casual salute, noting that school seems to be letting out. She gestures towards the students, speculating that the person they're looking for is likely one of the most popular girls there. Hayato, meanwhile, realizes this is his first time visiting this particular school. He turns to her, confused, asking why they're sneaking around. Suzuna quickly shushes him, pointing from behind cover and whispering that she's spotted her target. Ao. The name makes Hayato jolt in surprise. His eyes widen in disbelief. Walking alone from the gates of Cyan Middle School is his own sister, Ao. A closer look reveals an expression of profound sadness on Ao's face. She walks with her head slightly down, lost in a somber world of her own, a stark contrast to her usual bright self. The sight stuns Hayato into silence, his mind struggling to process what he is seeing. He can only manage to stammer his sister's name, a wave of concern washing over him. He stared, a cold sweat trickling down his temple. The expression on his sister's face was one he had never seen before, a look of profound sadness she never showed at home. His mind raced, trying to comprehend the sight before him. Standing there, watching her, he could only wonder what in the world was happening to his sister. Hayato watches his sister, Ao, her face clouded with a somberness he has never witnessed at home. The sight stops him in his tracks, a stark contrast to the cheerful sibling he knows. He can't understand it. He had always assumed she was enjoying her time at school, but the sad expression on her face tells a different story. As he walks with Hattori Suzuna, he tries to rationalize what he saw, suggesting to her that Ao probably just had a fight with a friend or was having a bad day. Ahead of them, Ao continues her solitary walk home. Suzuna cuts through his hopeful speculation with 2 simple, chilling words. Every day. Hayato is visibly startled by the revelation. The statement startles him. He presses for an explanation, asking why and what happened to her friends. Suzuna states plainly that Ao walks home alone every single day. He finds this impossible to believe, insisting that his sister is a totally outgoing person. But Suzuna counters his perception, revealing that Ao herself told her she has no friends to walk to and from school with. The pieces form a dreadful picture in his mind. He immediately fears the worst, asking if she is being bullied. Suzuna adds that Ao confessed that going to school is hard for her, prompting Hayato to angrily demand who is making his sister so sad. Suzuna stops him, her expression serious. She looks him directly in the eye and delivers the blow. The person making Ao sad is him. Hayato is stunned into disbelief, muttering a confused, "Me?" The reason for her accusation is rooted in the school's social hierarchy. Ao isn't being bullied directly. Instead, because she has an unawakened older brother, everyone is distant with her. She feels like an outcast, unable to get close to anyone. This devastating truth strikes Hayato with full force. The realization that his pretense of being unawakened was the direct cause of his sister's suffering leaves him horrified and speechless. He stood frozen by the revelation, watching as his sister, Ao, walked away down the street, letting out a long, weary sigh. Beside him, Suzuna observed the scene unfold. As she walked, Ao suddenly slapped her own cheeks, a sharp, deliberate motion to force away her melancholy. Her expression immediately shifted, replaced by a bright, determined smile as she resolved to herself that everything would be fine. Watching this from a distance, Suzuna explained to Hayato that Ao was aware of his feelings and had decided to act cheerful at home. Just then, Ao's voice echoed from her front door as she announced her arrival. The weight of this knowledge settled upon him. His expression hardened, and without a word, he broke into a full sprint towards home. He burst through the front door, shouting his sister's name. Startled by his sudden and frantic entrance, Ao turned to face him. Catching his breath, he managed a quiet apology. His concern was met with her own worried frustration, as she demanded to know where he had been, reminding him that she had left a note telling him to rest at home due to his injuries. He called her name to get her full attention, his expression turning serious. Her anger subsided into questioning curiosity as she waited for him to explain himself. Instead of a heavy confession, he simply declared that he would make dinner. Ao's face instantly lit up with relief and joy, and she exclaimed that he was a lifesaver. As he began to cook, his thoughts returned to his sister. He wondered how long she had been hiding her pain, never showing any sign of it. The pressure of his grip caused an eggshell to crack in his hand as the house stood silent under the night sky. He berated himself internally, thinking how pathetic he was that he could never say what he meant to her face. As he prepared the meal, his sister Ao watched him, a questioning look on her face. He placed a plate of omuris before her. Written across the top in ketchup was a single word, sorry. Ao stared at it, surprised, and asked what it was. After taking a bite, her expression softened into a gentle smile. She told him to make sure he rested properly starting the next day, seemingly accepting his silent apology. She continued, telling him not to worry about what happened earlier, and exclaimed how delicious the food was. Watching from the doorway, Hayato clenched his fists, making a silent vow not to let her suffer anymore. His resolve hardened. He decided he would stop lying to himself, driven by the desire to see her genuine smile again. Later that night, under a starry sky, a voice called out in front of a house, asking to speak with someone named Hattori. The scene shifts to the school grounds. Hayato now stands before his teacher, who is flanked by Tanaka Ryo and his spiky-haired companion. The teacher looks at him with irritation and asks what he wants. Hayato looks at the group steadily. He asks them directly, trusting they haven't forgotten about the incident at the warehouse. Tanaka smirks. He acknowledges the warehouse, remarking, "Ah, so you actually went." He then immediately denies any knowledge, claiming he wasn't there. That casual confirmation that he actually went strikes Hayato with the force of a revelation. His eyes widen as he instantly processes the implication of Tanaka's words. He stands on the school rooftop, confronted by the spiky-haired student. The bully admits he sent a group to attack Hayato, but they were unexpectedly defeated by a Ritter, a fact he delivers with mocking pity, calling Hayato lucky. The bully claps a hand on his shoulder, casually threatening to arrange another meeting and warning him to be ready. Hayato's expression darkens, his gaze fixed forward in silent resolve. He breaks his silence, his voice steady as he declares there will not be a next time. The statement catches the spiky-haired student and his companions, including Tanaka, completely by surprise. His gaze remains locked on them as he clarifies his meaning. This will be the last time they ever see him. The group misinterprets his words as a confession of defeat. Tanaka mockingly asks if he is finally dropping out of school, while the spiky-haired bully smugly tells him to get lost and never show his face again. Hayato scoffs at their assumption, revealing that he is joining the Special Countermeasures Unit. He questions how an unawakened person like him could get in, then quietly speaks a single word. Mars. The name is a trigger. Instantly, a colossal, fiery warrior materializes behind him, swinging a massive weapon that sends the entire group of bullies flying. Hayato stands motionless amidst the sudden eruption of power. Tossed through the air like dolls, the bullies are sent tumbling backward, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. After crashing to the ground, the spiky-haired student looks up in terror, stammering as the realization hits him. Hayato has an ability. With the fiery warrior looming behind him, Hayato explains that he only endured their torment for his sister's sake. The bully is frozen in fear, his body shaking uncontrollably from the overwhelming battle aura. He followed through with his attack, an invisible wave of force slamming into the bully's face and sending him reeling backward across the rooftop. As the bully staggered, Hayato reflected on his actions. He knew this display might make others fear him, perhaps even hate him, but he grimly concluded that his previous inaction had been the true mistake. His thoughts were interrupted by a memory of Hattori, Suzuna's encouraging words. She had told him not to worry about such things, insisting that he simply had to become so amazing that others would have no choice but to admire him. Taking her advice to heart, he stood his ground, resolving that he was done hiding his true self. With the fiery visage of Mars materializing behind him, he made a declaration intended to mislead his foe, stating that he was an ability user with a score of 0. The bully, bruised and panting in terror, could only listen as Hayato delivered a final, cold warning to never involve himself with him or Ao again. His message delivered, he turned and walked away, leaving the bully collapsed on the rooftop. The defeated student stammered in disbelief, Realizing there was no way Hayato could truly have a score of 0, he watched Hayato's retreating form, so terrified that a puddle formed at his feet. The bully's mind raced, concluding that such immense power had to be rated well over 100,000. Later, while walking through the school grounds, Hayato was surprised by a black car pulling up beside him. From inside, Hattori Suzuna cheerfully called out, waving for him to come over. Seated beside her in the back of the car, he apologized for making her come all the way to pick him up. Suzuna brushed it off, cheerfully stating that it was no problem at all, as the headquarters building was quite a long way away. Seated beside him in the vehicle, Hattori Suzuna turned to him with a curious smile. She asked how his farewell to his schoolmates had gone, wondering aloud if they had been crying. He confirmed her suspicion with a flat tone, stating that they seemed quite sad to see him go. Then, after a slight pause, he added simply they were. As the car continued down the city street, he finished his thought with a deadpan clarification. They were crying so hard, he recalled that they had wet themselves. A black car pulls to a stop. Beside Yanagi Hayato, Hattori Suzuna smiles and announces that they have arrived. Stepping out, Hayato stares up in astonishment at an immense skyscraper, remarking that it must be over 100 meters tall. Suzuna explains that this is the headquarters for the Special Countermeasures Unit's Japan branch. She then points to an adjacent apartment building, informing him that it will be his and his sister Ao's new home. He asks if Ao has already seen the apartment. Suzuna cheerfully confirms it, adding that his sister was incredibly excited when she saw how massive the living room was. As they walk through the building's modern lobby, Hayato inquires about the team size. Suzuna clarifies that, including him, there are now 8 members. She mentions she went to see his sister before picking him up, and he quietly takes in the information. Continuing down a wide corridor, she elaborates that most teams average about 4 members, and some smaller countries only have 2. The information sinks in for Hayato, who realizes the Japanese branch must possess a significant force. Suzuna then directs him towards a specific door in the hallway, identifying it as his locker room. She tells him to go get changed, as there's a uniform waiting for him inside. Just as he reaches for the handle, she hands him a temporary ID card with his name, Yanagi Hayato, printed on it. She explains its importance for accessing different areas and warns him not to lose it. He agrees, and she tells him she will wait for him there. As Hayato disappears into the locker room, Suzuna is startled by a familiar voice calling her name. She turns to see 2 of her teammates approaching. They are Kurosaka Ryoko and Sarenji Reika. Reika greets her and asks if she was just giving the new recruit a tour of the facility. Suzuna confirms with a simple yep, as Hayato is seen walking away in the background. Reika lets out an exasperated sigh. Ryoko, her expression stern and unwavering, states plainly that she still does not trust Hayato's mysterious power. Despite the swordswoman's lingering skepticism, Hattori Suzuna stepped in to ease the tension, apologizing for the wait. She smiled, suggesting that they would all understand Hayato better if they simply spent some time with him. As if on cue, Yanagi Hayato emerged, now clad in his own Special Countermeasures Unit uniform. He stood stiffly as Hattori exclaimed how great he looked. Even Kurosaka offered a terse compliment, while Sarenji agreed he looked cool. Flustered, Hayato formally introduced himself to the 2, bowing as they acknowledged him. With his introductions complete, Kurosaka gave a simple nod of acceptance. Sarenji, more enthusiastic, declared that they would tag along. She then turned to Hattori, asking where she was taking the newcomer next. Leading the way down a corridor, Hattori explained their destination was the basement. She informed the group that their leader was waiting for Hayato at the training grounds there. As they approached a door marked B1, Hayato asked what was in the basement. Through the doorway, a man in uniform stood waiting. He apologized for the delay, explaining that he had been instructed to bring Hayato down as soon as he had finished changing. He stepped forward with a confident smile. Hattori excitedly identified him as their leader, Konga Takaru, and the 15th ranked ability user in the world. Takaru formally introduced himself and extended a hand to Hayato, expressing his pleasure at finally meeting him. As Hayato accepted the handshake, a jolt of awareness shot through him. He could feel an immense power emanating from Takaru's hand and quickly realized this was no accident. The leader was intentionally letting him sense it. The sensation intensified, an overwhelming battle aura flowing from the leader's grip, a clear and deliberate demonstration of his formidable strength. Takaru's expression was one of calm self-assurance. Hayato was in awe, realizing that this was the true strength of the man who commanded the unit. Still holding his hand, the leader finally spoke. He revealed that Hattori had told him everything, specifically mentioning Hayato's incredible feat of single-handedly defeating both a Ravana and a Ritter. He struggles to explain the nature of his ability, admitting he can't quite put it into words. Konga Takaru, arms crossed, presses him, pointing out the contradiction of his reported 0 power level. The leader declares that he is the type of person who must witness things with his own eyes. His need for confirmation, he clarifies, isn't born from a doubt in Hattori or the others. As he speaks, Kurosaka, Hattori, and Sarenji watch the exchange with focused attention. With that, he turns his full attention back to Hayato, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. He declares that he will be the one to judge Hayato's fitness for the unit and challenges him to demonstrate his ability right then and there. The challenge hangs in the air. It is only natural for the leader to want certainty, especially considering the unresolved matter involving the Witch of Perth. Faced with this direct order, Hayato's expression hardens with resolve. He acknowledges Kongu as a good leader and agrees to the test, stating he doesn't mind. His agreement leads them to a spacious training hall. Kongu stands opposite him, explaining that the area is protected by a special barrier that won't break easily, encouraging Hayato not to hold anything back. He clarifies the terms of the test, explaining that it isn't about winning or losing. With a snap of his fingers, he demands just one shot from Hayato, urging him to attack with everything he has. In response to the command, Hayato's focus intensifies. He utters a single word, the name of his ability, Mars. He confirms he understands the instruction. As he speaks the name, a tremendous, fiery aura erupts from him, taking the form of a colossal, spectral warrior. Kongu watches, a slight smile on his face, noting the strange quality of the aura. It feels like Hayato's power, yet simultaneously something else entirely. He readies himself, announcing it's his turn and invoking his own ability, Paladin. In an instant, a shimmering wall of light materializes before Kongu. Hayato stares in surprise. The other unit members recognize their leader's ability, a defensive barrier composed of 10 layers, which can also be used for attack. Kongu states he will start with 4 barriers to see how it goes. He smirks at the spectral warrior looming behind Hayato, condescendingly asking if that's all the power he can muster. Hayato, caught off guard by the taunt, can only question him in return. In response, Hayato's spectral warrior, Mars, lunges forward, its massive blades swinging down with immense force toward Kongu's layered defenses. The sheer force of the attack stuns the onlookers. Kurosaka Ryoko notes with alarm that Hayato's power has suddenly surged, while Kongu himself is startled, wondering about the nature of the crimson battle aura now enveloping the boy. He realizes his initial defense is insufficient and quickly summons more barriers, bringing the total to 7. As Hayato unleashes his piercing star technique, Kongu internally acknowledges the danger, yet expresses anticipation in testing one of his own attacks against the world's 15th ranked user. The spectral blade crashes into the layered defenses, causing a massive explosion of light and energy as the barriers begin to shatter under the overwhelming force. Shards of the destroyed light constructs rain down onto the training hall floor, littering the ground with crystalline fragments. Standing among the remnants of his shattered defenses, Kongu Takaru observes a crack forming on the final barrier protecting him. He mutters to himself that the attack was dangerously close. He runs his hand over the fracture in the 7th barrier, analyzing the power displayed. He internally calculates that destroying 4 or 5 of his barriers requires the strength of an A-rank monster, while breaking 6 necessitates an S-rank threat. Yet, Hayato's attack managed to put a crack in the 7th. Hattori Suzuna, impressed, exclaims that they've certainly brought in one hell of a rookie. Across the hall, Kongu offers a small, acknowledging smirk towards Hayato. Kurosaka Ryoko quietly speculates whether Hayato's power is some form of physical reinforcement ability. Beside her, Syringe Reika simply expresses her awe, remarking that it's even more amazing to witness up close. He stands in stunned silence, still processing the aftermath of his attack. Kongu Takaru, however, looks pleased, a thoughtful smile on his face as he declares that he will give the last spot to Yanagi. The thunderous crash of his attack had not gone unnoticed. Hattori Suzuna, flanked by Kurosaka Ryoko and Syringe Reika, storms into the area, demanding to know the source of the commotion. In response to her outburst, Kongu Takaru turns to face the newcomers, which include another unit member named Gaju. With a disarming smile, Kongu assures them it's nothing to worry about, explaining that their new recruit simply got a bit carried away. His explanation does little to quell their curiosity. Kurosaka Ryoko studies Hayato, observing aloud that she doesn't recognize him and confirming with the others that he must be the new recruit. Ignoring their chatter, Kongu's demeanor shifts as he turns his attention back to Hayato. He informs him that the higher-ups are once again making inquiries about the labyrinthine cave incident. Before Hayato can fully process this, Kongu cuts the thought short, stating with finality that it's fine. He has made his decision. The abrupt statement leaves Hayato looking up in confusion. He then places a firm hand on the young man's shoulder. Looking him directly in the eye, Kongu Takaru formally addresses him as Yanagi Hayato and appoints him to the subjugation team for the labyrinthine cave, announcing that this will be his first mission. With a hand firmly on Yanagi Hayato's shoulder, Kongu Takaru enthusiastically declares the boy's first mission. He officially appoints Yanagi to the subjugation team for the labyrinthine cave, much to Yanagi's quiet surprise. Following the appointment, Kongu presents Yanagi to the rest of the assembled unit. He confidently states that with Yanagi's power, he will be fine. However, Kurosaka Ryoko, standing with her arms crossed, questions the wisdom of sending a rookie into the field right away. Kongu turns his attention to another male member of the squad, asking if he, Gaju, also heard about the recent blast. Yanagi internally reflects that this kind of event is a first for him since joining the unit. The man, Gaju Subaru, offers Yanagi a friendly smile, and introduces himself, saying it's a pleasure. He then confirms Yanagi's identity, to which a slightly flustered Yanagi stammers a confirmation. Yanagi is startled as another operative steps forward with a light stomp of her boot. She tells him not to worry, remarking that it's perfectly fine if he happens to get hurt on his first mission. The girl with a bob cut introduces herself as Kokuri Hana, expressing her pleasure to be working with him. Immediately after, the girl with the braided hair cheerfully introduces herself as Kurosaka Mocha, promising to heal him up perfectly if needed. Hearing their introductions, Kongu gestures toward them and explains their roles to Yanagi. They are key members of the rear support. Kurosaka is the heel bearer, and Kokuri is the prophetess. Yanagi takes this in, surprised to find others' age in the unit. His thoughts are interrupted as Kongu calls his name, adding that both girls possess some very rare abilities. The revelation catches Yanagi by surprise. The entire team, Hattori Suzuna, Kurosaka Ryoko, Kurosaka Mocha, Gaju Subaru, and Kongatakaru, gathers around him. Kokuri Hana steps forward slightly, speaking for the group as she formally welcomes him. The words resonate with Yanagi as he stands before his new comrades, officially welcomed into the Special Countermeasures Unit. He and his new team gather for their first assignment, entering a designated conference room. Inside, their leader, Kongatakaru, stands before the assembled unit to explain the details of the mission. Their objective, he states, is to investigate a labyrinthine cave that has suddenly appeared. As he speaks, Sarenji Reika comments wryly that one would think a team sent by the government would be competent. Hattori Suzuna, seated beside Yanagi, adds that the government did send in a recon team, but all contact with them has been lost. Hattori immediately asks if this means the previous team was wiped out. Konga clarifies that their deaths are not confirmed. They have only received reports that all communication has ceased. He continues, emphasizing that with communications down, they have no way of predicting the level of monsters they will face inside. The gravity of the warning settles on Yanagi. Konga declares that the mission is extremely dangerous, as there could be A-rank or even SS-rank monsters awaiting them. He then formally announces the mission roster, which will deploy the following day. The team members will be himself, Hattori, and Sarenji. His gaze shifts as he concludes the list, and Yanagi. Yanagi meets the announcement with a look of focused determination. Gaju Subaru then explains the assignments for those staying behind. He notes that he wasn't selected because his abilities are ill-suited for narrow caves, while Kurosaka Ryoko will remain to take command in case of an emergency. Sensing the new recruit's apprehension, Sarenji leans toward Yanagi with a reassuring smile. She tells him they should be relatively safe, as they have her teleportation ability to rely on. He watched as the briefing concluded. The team leader, Kongatakaru, turned to a specialist at the table. And lastly, he began, Kokuri, if you would deliver the results of your prophecy as always. The woman, Kokuri Hana, simply clasped her hands and remained silent. After a tense moment, she began to speak, her voice low. For this mission, unless there is some drastic change. Her ominous pause prompted Yanagi to turn, his concern evident. What's wrong? He asked. Her gaze remained steady and her expression grim as she delivered the chilling conclusion. Someone on the subjugation team will die. The prophecy struck the room like a thunderclap. Every member at the table, Yanagi, Hattori, Kurosaka, and Sarenji, froze, their faces etched with shock. Yanagi was stunned, thinking it had to be a joke. But beside him, Hattori Suzuna spoke with unnerving calm. Kokuri-chan's prophecies are never wrong. She then turned to Kokuri with a bright, reassuring smile. We'll take those words to heart, she declared, adding a simple, thank you, in response. Kokuri's expression softened with genuine concern for the team. Please, be careful, she urged. Yanagi looked around at his composed teammates, completely bewildered. He couldn't comprehend their lack of fear. Aren't they afraid? He wondered internally. No. Is it because they're used to hearing prophecies of death? He looked up, a startling realization dawning on him as he processed their professional acceptance. He finally understood. This grim possibility was their everyday reality. The thought of this dangerous life immediately brought an image of his sister, Ao, to his mind. He winced, realizing that his new career would likely do nothing but make her worry constantly. As Yanagi Hayato reeled from the prophecy, the unit leader, Kongatakaru, concluded the briefing. He warned the team that they had no idea what would happen on this mission and demanded that they all be sharper than ever. He could only let out a confused huh. Beside him, Hattori Suzuna calmly told him that it would be okay. She leaned in with a confident smile, promising to protect him no matter what happened. After all, she reminded him, he was the one she had scouted. Her declaration made him blush. He called out her name, asking if she meant she would sacrifice herself for him. She quickly backpedaled, clarifying that she simply meant she would protect him. And that was all. He turned away, his expression hardening. He thanked Hattori for her sentiment, but stated with conviction that he was not going to be the one to die. With newfound resolve, he made a vow to himself and the others. If anything were to happen, he would be the one to protect everyone. The next day, the team set out. A rugged vehicle rumbled down a narrow dirt road, cutting through a dense, rocky forest. Its tires kicked up dust and gravel, speeding along the uneven terrain as it carried the unit toward their objective. Inside the jostling vehicle, Yanagi groaned, his eyes widening as he became aware of his uncomfortable situation and the people around him. He found himself pinned in the back seat, wedged tightly between a smiling Kurosaka Ryoko and an equally amused Hattori Suzuna. He realized with a jolt that this must be some kind of newbie hazing. As the vehicle travels along a rough path, Hattori Suzuna complains that the bumpy ground is making her sore. Beside her, Sarenji Reika cheerfully remarks that she's quite comfortable, using Yanagi's thigh as a cushion. Caught between the two women, Yanagi remains silent and flustered. Suzuna, noticing his discomfort, calls out to the driver, Kangatakaru, urging him to say something as well. He glances back with a confident smirk, warning that any more complaints will be met with divine punishment. He then adds that Yanagi is experiencing the classic flower in each hand scenario. As their transport continues down the dirt road, Yanagi blushes, internally conceding that this situation, while embarrassing, might be considered an acceptable reward in its own way. The vehicle comes to an abrupt halt. Having disembarked, the team stands before the dark, gaping maw of a cave set into a cliffside. Kongu confirms that this is their entrance. As they take in the sight, Reika comments on the gloomy and nasty feeling in the air. Yanagi adds his own observation, noting that he doesn't sense the presence of any particularly strong monsters. Their leader takes charge. "Let's go," Kongu commands, his expression serious as he reminds them not to forget Kakuri's prophecy. The team readies themselves to proceed. Following his order, the four operatives step forward, disappearing into the oppressive darkness of the cave. Elsewhere, under a cloudy sky, an unseen observer makes a quiet realization. Their targets have finally made their move. From an unseen vantage point, a being of pure shadow observes its prey. It identifies the intruders as the Special Countermeasures Unit. Its thoughts drift to one member in particular, noting that within all of Japan's Special Countermeasures Unit, there is no one who possesses his specific weakness. The shadowy form coalesces, its focus sharpening with malevolent intent. Its will is made manifest as it addresses the oblivious unit below. Surrounded by unseen, grinning visages in the oppressive darkness, Kangatakaru and his team stand ready, unaware of the voice that condemns them. It commands them to proceed, to go, and rot within the labyrinth it has specifically designed. Deep within a crystalline cavern, a Special Countermeasures Unit squad proceeds with caution. Kangatakaru leads the way, flanked by Sarenji Reika, with Hattori Suzuna and Yanagi Hayato following close behind, all clad in their unit's dark uniforms. As they walk, Hattori Suzuna voices her unease, remarking that the place feels like it could have ghosts, which she hates since they can't be hit with physical attacks. Sarenji Reika agrees, adding that she isn't a fan either because her teleportation ability doesn't work on them. Her comment catches Takaru's attention. He turns to Reika, questioning her about the bag she's carrying, and observes with surprise that most girls don't immediately think about attacking a ghost. He internally muses that she is really something else, noting that even as a support type, she came fully prepared to join the attack. Reika simply explains that since her ability isn't offensive, she brought some weapons along. Continuing deeper into the passage, Takaru points out that it's strangely bright, even though no light is getting in from the outside. Suzuna walks beside him, agreeing that it is certainly strange. Suddenly, Reika stops. She warns that if a monster were to appear, their reaction might be slow, as her vision is starting to blur. Her hand trembles slightly. Just as she finishes her warning, a transparent, cube-shaped barrier materializes around the entire squad, trapping them instantly. All four are startled by the sudden confinement. From within the transparent prison, Takaru's expression hardens with resolve. He calmly states that this should solve the problem, implying he has a countermeasure in mind. Moments later, the squad is free from the trap. Suzuna praises her leader's coolness, but Takaru dismisses the flattery. Reika urgently points out their new threat, a horde of small, goblin-like monsters swarming towards them. One lunges directly at Hayato. Hayato flinches in surprise as the attacking creature is instantly bisected before it can reach him. He stares, momentarily stunned by the swift, lethal intervention from one of his comrades. He looks on, startled and confused by the sudden turn of events that just saved his life. The goblin that had been lunging towards him is suddenly and cleanly bisected by an unseen force. But he was wrong. Hayato had thought Konga's ability was purely defensive, yet now he witnesses transparent barriers smashing through the goblin horde with lethal force. As the barriers fly through the air, the scene unfolding before his eyes makes him realize the truth. Konga's power is not nearly that simple. The squad stands untouched amidst the carnage. Hayato understands now that Kongu doesn't just possess the ultimate defense. He is an offensive-type ability user as well. As he grapples with this, Hattori Suzuna remarks with a confident smile that Kongu is just getting started and hasn't even used one of his properties yet. Her choice of words leaves him puzzled. Properties? He asks. Sarenji Reika calmly elaborates, explaining that Kongu can grant his barriers one of 4 properties depending on the battle: absorption, explosion, distortion, or disintegration. The revelation stuns Hayato. He thinks that Kongu is already practically invincible, and can enhance his barriers even further. Watching his teammates handle the threat so easily, he laments that at this rate, it doesn't look like there will be a turn for him. With the goblin horde completely annihilated, the path forward is clear. The 4 squad members stand together before a massive, intricately designed door set into the far wall of the cavern. He stands before the massive door, sensing the palpable tension in the air. Kangatakaru notes that the place has a certain feel to it. Beside him, Sagesumareteiru agrees, speculating that a powerful enemy must be waiting for them. His attention shifts to Yanagi Hayato, who can sense the scent of death emanating from beyond the door. Kurosaka Ryoko appears at his side, remarking that any veteran of countless battles recognizes this feeling. She then delivers an ominous recollection, a prediction that one of the subjugation team members will die. The squad leader turns back to his team, his expression hardening with resolve. He asks a single, crucial question: "Are you ready?" In response, Hayato firmly answers, yes. Beside him, Hattori Suzuna and Sarenji Reika give a sharp, determined nod, their resolve matching his. With his team's resolve confirmed, Kongu places both hands firmly against the surface of the great stone doors. He warns them to stay sharp, as they don't know what is coming. With a great surge of strength, he pushes the heavy doors inward, the stone grinding as a dark chamber is revealed. As the doors grind open, a serpentine head lunges from the darkness, its sudden appearance causing the squad to recoil in surprise. The creature then reveals its full form, emerging from the shadows. It is a massive beast with the body of a lion and a thick, dark mane, but its tail is a long, writhing snake. It lets out a deep, guttural roar, its eyes glowing with an empty white light. The squad stares, stunned by the sight. Hayato shouts its identification, a chimera. The creature is confirmed to be an A-rank monster, a composite beast with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a venomous snake. The beast stands before them, a truly troublesome foe. Its danger is compounded by the fact that both its lion head and its snake tail possess independent consciousnesses, making it a dual-minded threat. The beast's attack slams into an invisible wall, its force dissipating harmlessly. From behind the unseen barrier, a calm voice announces the ability used, absorption. Hayato and his teammates stand completely untouched. As he processes their narrow escape, Hayato is startled as Hattori Suzuna blurs past him in a burst of speed. He watches in awe, realizing he is witnessing the true power of a professional's ability. The chimera, momentarily halted, lowers its stance, its leonine face contorted in a ferocious snarl as it prepares to lunge once more. In an instant, a streak of motion cuts through the air. The beast's eyes widen in surprise, but it has no time to react. The unseen attack connects, tearing a bloody swathe across the chimera's flank and sending a spray of dark fluid into the air. Hayato stares, completely bewildered, wondering when Hattori had even moved. It is then that the nature of her power is made clear. Hattori's ability, known as Excel, is the fastest in the world, granting her the power to accelerate any target or phenomenon. The chimera lets out a furious roar of pain, but before it can retaliate, its head suddenly erupts in a massive explosion. He watches, stunned, as the monster's headless corpse collapses. Now what? He wonders, unable to comprehend the sudden turn of events. In that moment of confusion, Sarenji Reika appears beside him, holding a detonator. She playfully asks if he found the explosion tasty and offers another. Her ability is teleport, allowing her to instantly move to any location she has seen or previously visited. The strategy becomes clear. Sarenji had teleported the bomb she was holding directly into the chimera's mouth. Her power is not limited to herself. She can teleport any object she is touching. As its body disintegrates from the inside out, the mortally wounded chimera trembles, its form collapsing. In its final moment of consciousness, a single thought crystallizes. These are the chosen ability users. With the monster vanquished, Hattori Suzuna stands with a confident smile, her hand resting on her blade as she proudly proclaims this victory as a display of the Special Countermeasures Unit's power. Beside her, Sarenji Reika maintains a serene composure. Their leader, Kangatakaru, observes them with a sharp, unwavering gaze. Within the cavern, the massive chimera lies subdued. Yanagi Hayato stares, astonished to how easily the beast was overpowered. He reflects on the immense power of the Special Countermeasures Unit. His thoughts are interrupted as Kangatakaru turns to him. Kanga notes that the creature is tough and that they're almost at their destination, then declares that the rest is all Yanagi's. The younger operative looks back, a question mark hanging in the air. As Yanagi faces the wounded but still snarling chimera, Kongu gives him a clear order with a confident smile. Finish it with one blow. The beast lets out a final, defiant roar in response. Unfazed, Yanagi calmly accepts the task, simply stating, "Got it." He lunges forward, his body crackling with power. As he closes the distance to the monster's head, he invokes a name, Mars, and prepares to shatter his target. With a final cry of Mountain Crusher, his fist connects. The impact is immense, completely obliterating the chimera's head in a violent explosion of force and dark matter. The dust settles to reveal the headless corpse of the chimera. Yanagi stands with Serenji, humbly stating that he only succeeded because they had all weakened it for him. Serenji, however, is visibly impressed, remarking on the incredible power required to pierce the creature's tough hide. As they observe the aftermath, Kanga notices Serenji's pensive expression and asks what's wrong. She confirms that the monster's presence is gone and questions if their mission is truly over. He asks what makes her say that. She explains her unease, voicing a troubling thought. She was wondering if the survey team they were sent to find ever actually fought this chimera. Kanga's expression turns grim. He confirms her suspicion, stating that they didn't see a single trace of the survey team on their way here. Furthermore, he points out the complete lack of evidence that the chimera had defeated anyone in this room. His team having dispatched the beast, the leader decided they should search the immediate area. He voiced the question on all their minds. Where was the survey team? As he spoke, Serenji Reika reported, finding nothing particularly suspicious. He then addressed the others spread throughout the large cavern, asking if they had found anything. A moment of silence followed. Yanagi Hayato looked around, a flicker of uncertainty on his face. Seeing no leads, Kongu suggested they head back for now, an idea Serenji thought might be for the best. But just as they prepared to leave, Yanagi noticed something embedded in the cavern wall. He called Hattori Suzuna's attention to a strange, smooth orb, and they both stared at it, wondering what it could be. Without warning, the orb erupted in a blinding flash of light. Kongu reacted instantly, shouting out to Yanagi and Hattori as the energy flared, catching Yanagi completely by surprise. The light was overwhelming. Both Yanagi and Hattori instinctively shielded their eyes, grunting as the intense radiance washed over them. Moments later, the light faded, revealing an unfamiliar, dense forest surrounding them. Disoriented, Yanagi could only ask where they were. He looked around, bewildered. Hattori, equally confused, questioned if they had somehow been sent to another dimension, as they were just in the cave moments before. Yanagi agreed, speculating the orb's light was the cause. The grim reality settled in for him. They had been forcibly teleported. Hattori's expression hardened with resolve. She remarked that she knew it was strange for things to end with just a chimera, concluding that the real fight was only now beginning. Her thoughts immediately turned to their squad. She asked where Kongu and the others were, then checked the communication device. With a frustrated sigh, she confirmed it was no good. She couldn't reach them. She gets his attention, pointing urgently. Hayato, look. He turns, his expression serious as he considers their predicament. Were their teammates sent to a different location, or were they still back in the cave? Her gesture directs his gaze toward a colossal tree, some 20 meters tall, dominating the landscape. She suggests they head for it, proposing it might hold the key to their return. Hayato agrees without hesitation. As they begin to walk, a grim thought surfaces in his mind. He would rather not dwell on it, but he recalls that there have been 3 cases in the past involving phenomena just like this one. Each of those incidents involve a monster that drags others into its own dimension, a private domain where it can toy with its victims on its own terms. He continues onward, the weight of this knowledge pressing down. In all 3 of those cases, the one thing they had in common was a terrifying rule. You cannot escape the dimension until you defeat the monster. His face sets with grim determination as he recalls the final, crucial detail. In every instance, the monster was S-rank. Hattori listens, her expression hardening as she notes that Senior Kakuri's prophecy is starting to sound more credible. As Hayato processes the grim possibility that this is another one of those cases, a sudden noise makes him turn around, startled. His gaze falls upon a man slumped against a tree, startling them both. Hattori recognizes the uniform immediately. It belongs to the survey team. The realization hits Hayato. The missing team is trapped in this dimension, too. They observe the man, who is gaunt and unresponsive, his eyes vacant. Hattori quietly hopes that the other members of his team are still alive, but Hayato's mind turns to darker possibilities. Were they killed by a monster, or did they simply run out of food? Seeing the man's catatonic state, Hattori decides they must press on. She states that they might find out more about the team's fate if they keep going. Hayato agrees, and they continue their journey deeper into the forest. Deep within the forest, another victim is trapped. A young man, his face a mask of terror, is wedged inside the hollow of a massive tree, unable to escape. Unaware of this, Hattori and Yanagi continue their desperate run. Hattori points ahead, announcing that the giant tree they've been seeking is just ahead. As they race forward, Yanagi expresses his hope that if Kongu and the others are also trapped in this dimension, they too are heading for the tree. Their progress comes to an abrupt halt. Both of them stop dead in their tracks, their faces frozen in disbelief and shock at the scene before them. The source of their horror is a grotesque display. Hanging limply from the gnarled branches around them are the bodies of numerous squad members, impaled and lifeless. Yanagi can only stammer, asking what it is he's seeing. Hattori's eyes widen in horrified recognition. She confirms their worst fears, crying out that these are the missing members of the survey team. The grim realization is cut short by a sudden attack. A massive, sharpened root erupts from the ground, lunging toward Hattori. Yanagi reacts in a flash, shoving her out of the way as he dodges just in time. A voice echoes with amusement at the near miss. The root smashes into the earth, narrowly missing its targets. The unseen assailant's voice commends the evasion, stating its impressiveness. From the shadows emerges the attacker, a colossal, ancient tree, its bark forming a monstrous face with glowing eyes. It speaks, its voice deep and resonant, acknowledging their skill, especially for mere humans. Facing the sentient behemoth, Yanagi's expression hardens with resolve. He sizes up the impossible foe and grimly accepts the challenge, muttering that this is going to be a pain. Before Kongatakaru and Hattori Suzuna stands a colossal, sentient tree, a treant. From its branches hang the limp forms of defeated combatants. The creature's voice, ancient and deep, addresses Takaru directly, expressing impressed surprise that a mere human could have dodged its previous attack. Takaru glances at Suzuna, asking if this entity is the master of the space they're trapped in. She confirms his suspicion, stating that it is most likely the case. The treant's gnarled face twists in fury. It lets out a booming roar, demanding that they fear it. His expression remains unchanged. Takaru processes the creature's ability to understand human speech, which solidifies his assessment. There is no doubt this is an S-rank monster. In response to their defiance, the treant bellows a single word: despair. Instantly, an array of sharp, wooden spikes erupts from the ground around the two warriors. They leap apart, narrowly dodging the deadly barrage. As she lands, Suzuna notes that while the attacks aren't overwhelmingly powerful, their high adaptability makes them dangerous. Takaru lands, confirming her analysis. He realizes that this adaptability is precisely why the trajectory of the roots is so difficult to predict. His focus sharpens as he identifies a critical flaw in the monster strategy. Its main body remains completely stationary during the assault. With this new understanding, he pivots and drives his fist into an oncoming root, shattering it on impact. He declares that the monster's immobility makes it a nice, easy target. A wet, squelching sound fills the air. Takaru and Suzuna watch as a large hole appears in the treant's face, its bark-like skin beginning to crumble and fall apart. The colossal creature begins to mend itself, the gaping wound in its wooden face slowly closing as smoke rises from the damaged bark. Its glowing eyes fixate on its attackers. Watching this display, Kongatakaru notes the creature's regeneration with a grimace, remarking on the pain it must be in. Beside him, Hattori Suzuna confirms his observation: regeneration. The treant, overhearing them, lets out a booming laugh. It mocks Takaru, calling him a talkative tree and declaring that they never stood a chance. It bellows that their efforts are useless. Unfazed by the monster's tirade, he raises a hand, calmly telling it to be quiet for a moment. As he speaks, Hattori Suzuna descend from above, unleashing a meteor swarm technique. A barrage of energy blasts rains down upon the treant's canopy, causing a series of violent explosions. The assault leaves the treant's upper body riddled with smoking holes, but remains standing as Takaru looks on in surprise. The creature observes that humans are just humans, and then its body begins to pulse and swell. The holes seal themselves shut once more. The treant grins menacingly, calling humans comical creatures. Takaru realizes his naivete, thinking that just blasting a piece of it would be enough to kill it. He turns to Hattori Suzuna, theorizing that the monster must have some kind of core. Suzuna asks if he can't use the same technique that wiped out the Ritter, but he explains that the target is simply too large. She processes his words, exclaiming that finding a core inside such a massive body isn't a realistic plan. He clarifies his previous statement, explaining that it's not that he doesn't have a technique that can wipe it out. He trails off, leaving the rest of his thought unspoken. The colossal treant looms over them, its wooden face twisted into a mocking expression. It questions their strength, asking if their previous attacks were all they had to offer. In response, Kongatakaru devises a new plan. He instructs Hattori Suzuna to jump as high as she can on a signal. Though surprised, she agrees. Internally, Takaru apologizes to his fallen comrades, vowing to lay their souls to rest if he makes it back to the surface. He then steps forward, positioning himself directly before the monstrous tree. As Suzuna leaps into the air behind him, he shouts the command, "Now!" As she soars upwards, he stomps his foot firmly on the ground, unleashing a technique he calls collapsing star. The ground beneath the treant shatters under immense pressure, revealing not only the monster's glowing core, but also the bodies of the soldiers it had absorbed. An immense explosion of force erupts from the point of impact, engulfing the area in a blinding white light. Still airborne, Suzuna looks down, her expression one of utter shock as she witnesses the devastation unfolding below. The light fades to reveal a massive, perfectly circular crater where the treant once stood. Suzuna lands beside Takaru in the center of the devastation, stunned by the unbelievable power he has just displayed. She looks around at the obliterated landscape and asks with a hopeful tone if the creature is surely dead now, after having so much of it destroyed. Her words, however, seem to have been premature. Takaru's eyes widen in alarm as he senses something amiss, remarking that she has just jinxed them. He and Hattori Suzuna stand back to back, stunned, as the single regenerating treant has now become two, both towering over them with menacing energy. He stares in disbelief, demanding to know why the creature multiplied. Beside him, Suzuna can only utter a confused sound, equally shocked by the development. In response, one of the trance speaks, its voice echoing from its wooden face. It confirms that, just as they had predicted, it does indeed possess a core. The creature continues its explanation, revealing a crucial, terrible fact. Its core is not located within its physical body. Its voice booms across the landscape, clarifying that the core exists somewhere within the vast, forested space they now occupy. A root-like appendage snakes out from the trance, gesturing towards the endless sea of trees as it commands them to go in search. Takaru can only stare, thinking to himself that the area is impossibly large. The two trance mock them, their wooden faces splitting into wide, sinister grins. They taunt the pair, wondering aloud how long they can last, and declaring that this hunt should be quite a show. As the monster's branches writhe menacingly, Takaru explains the grim reality to Suzuna. It's not just about finding the core. They must do so while dodging its countless attacks. Suzuna looks down, overwhelmed, questioning how just the two of them are supposed to find a single core in such a vast space. Suddenly, a new voice cuts in. A woman with long, light hair, wearing the same SCU uniform, appears beside Takaru. She addresses him as Hayato and tells him to step back for a bit. Startled, Takaru internally assesses the situation, thinking that this challenge might be too much even for Mars. The woman steps forward, her long hair flowing behind her, as she prepares to confront the enemy. Her gaze fixed forward, unwavering and cold, a small cut visible on her cheek. With her face half-cast in shadow, she tightened her grip on the hilt of her sword, its blade angled towards the unseen foe. She made a simple, chilling vow, her voice devoid of hesitation. She was going to kill that monster. With her face cast in shadow, Suzuna Hattori turns to a surprised Hayato Yanagi and tells him to step back for a moment. He looks from her to the colossal treant looming in the distance and asks what she intends to do. Gripping her twin blades, she declares with grim determination that she is going to kill the monster. She elaborates on her decision, stating that Hayato's ability lacks the necessary firepower to destroy the entire space they are trapped in. Therefore, she concludes, she is the one with the better chance, and the task must fall to her. The two faces of the giant treant roar with amusement, its voice echoing through the forest. It commands its roots to search, demanding to be entertained by their pathetic and futile struggles as Suzuna stands defiantly before it. With a slight smile, Suzuna whispers a single word of activation, Excel. In an instant, she vanishes in a burst of speed, racing along one of the creature's massive roots. Left behind, a stunned Hayato can only shout out her name in surprise. Her sudden velocity startles the treant. As sharp roots erupt from the ground in an attempt to skewer her, she pushes herself harder, realizing she must be even faster to survive. She becomes a blur, weaving through the deadly forest at impossible speeds, leaving afterimages in her wake as she dodges the relentless assault. A clean, straight line of destruction is carved through the dense canopy, marking the path of her impossibly fast passage. Hayato watches in utter disbelief, realizing she tore through a third of the forest in the blink of an eye. As the treant roars for the brat to stand still, Suzuna is already airborne, her blades glowing as she descends upon a massive, cleanly severed root. He could only watch as Suzuna unleashed her technique, 100 Blossoms Bloom, driving her twin blades deep into the monstrous transform with a powerful impact. The attack sent her recoiling, but she immediately used the momentum to accelerate away, a blur of motion. She knew her power allowed for near-infinite acceleration, but it came with a cost. She grimaced, acknowledging the physical toll it was taking. There was a definite limit to how much her body could withstand, and she was still not in a position to unleash her ultimate technique. Her muscles screamed in protest, the strain of her own velocity causing her body to tremble on the verge of breaking down. Meanwhile, the treant roared in fury, its form seemingly split into two identical, gnarled faces. It bellowed that she was an annoying insect, flitting around just out of reach. In response to its frustration, a dense thicket of sharp, woody tendrils erupted from the ground, forming an impenetrable wall of thorns. Its glowing eyes narrowed with malice as it promised to grind her into dust. Seeing the escalating danger, Hayato cried out her name in alarm. But she was already in motion, expertly twisting and dodging through the air to evade the treant's furious assault. Using the attack as a springboard, she launched herself high into the air, soaring above the sea of thorns. With her blades held ready, she resolved to end the fight with this next blow. She descends upon the treant, her twin blades a blur of motion as she unleashes her technique. 3,000 worlds. Countless slashes of light converge on a single point. The impact sends cracks spiderwebbing across an unseen surface. The treant's glowing eyes widen in disbelief. It cannot comprehend being beaten by a mere human. A moment later, a blinding explosion of energy erupts, engulfing the area in a flash of white light and scattering debris. As the light fades, Hayato kneels beside Suzuna, who has fallen to the ground, trembling. He places a hand on her shoulder, urgently asking if she is all right. The armor on her leg shows signs of cracking from a strain. She manages a weak wink, confirming it was a direct hit and that she destroyed the core. With a flicker of confidence, she declares that the main body should now be finished, but her expression suddenly shifts to one of shock. A voice echoes from the shadows of the crater they now occupy, coolly remarking on her carelessness. The treant emerges from the smoke, its massive form intact. It speaks, expressing surprise that she actually managed to destroy one of its cores. The creature taunts her, asking if she intends to get started on the next one. The realization dawns on Suzuna as she whispers in horror. One of them, her spirit breaks. Her sword slips from her grasp and clatters to the ground. Overwhelmed, she wonders how many cores there could possibly be, concluding that the situation is hopeless. In her mind, she sees her comrades and apologizes to them all. Turning her gaze to Hayato, her voice is filled with regret. She apologizes for being the one who brought him into this danger and for her failure to protect him. She looks up from her position on the ground, startled, as a voice cuts through her despair, telling her it's too soon to give up. Hayato steps forward, placing himself between her and the towering treant. The monster gloats, eager to see her face twist in utter despair. Hayato ignores it, calmly stating he will handle things from here. Alarmed, Suzuna protests, insisting that it's hopeless. Unfazed by her plea, he softly speaks a single, resonant word. "Ra?" In an instant, a blinding torrent of power erupts from his position, blasting outward through the forest. The sheer force of the blast leaves Suzuna staring in wide-eyed shock. Hayato, now the center of the maelstrom, addresses the treant directly, telling the worthless weed that it is getting ahead of itself. Behind him, a colossal, spectral figure materializes, a warrior god wreathed in blinding light, its form towering and ancient, holding an ornate staff as energy swirls around them. His eyes burn with newfound intensity as he fixes his gaze forward and declares, "Now it's my turn." As the colossal treant looms, the spectral form of the sun deity, Ra, materializes behind Yanagi Hayato, radiating intense heat. Watching from the side, Hattori Suzuna realizes with astonishment that this is a different ability entirely. Hayato himself stands firm, planting his foot on the ground in defiance of the monster before him. This new entity is Ra, a god who wields flames reaching several thousand degrees. It is declared that nothing can escape the inferno at his command, his powerful, featureless form crackling with divine fire. The treant, however, is unimpressed. Through the foliage, its wooden face twists into a sneer as it questions Hayato's plan, calling him naive for intending to burn it. In response to the taunt, Hayato simply states, "Flames." Instantly, a protective ring of fire erupts around a startled Hattori Suzuna, separating her from the impending conflict. He then looks up at the towering monster with cold determination, informing it to stay put and be quiet, for he is about to turn it into ashes. The treant's wooden face contorts in disbelief at the boy's audacity. It can only bellow a single word in response to the threat. "Absurd." Hayato's gaze remains fixed and unwavering. He calmly tells the creature that its confidence is unfortunate for it. Following his words, Ra unleashes its power. A cataclysmic explosion of fire erupts from the deity, engulfing the entire area in a blinding, roaring inferno. As the flames rage, the treant lets out a low growl of frustration. Hayato's eyes narrow as he delivers a chilling proclamation. "For you, I am the Reaper." The treant roars in defiance. Its body has transformed, now encased in a hardened, pale shell that seems impervious to the heat. It bellows that in this state, no flame can harm it, warning the brat not to underestimate it as a bright light begins to glow from within its core. The colossal tree monster looks down upon the scene, its voice booming with disdain. It declares the display utterly foolish as Hattori Suzuna watches with wide, uncertain eyes. Hayato's expression remains cold and defiant. He retorts that for the creature to posture before a god is a farce so pathetic, he cannot even bring himself to laugh. His declaration leaves the treant momentarily stunned, muttering in confusion. Even Suzuna seems bewildered, calling out Hayato's name as strange. Fiery spheres begin to bubble up from the ground around him. The spheres erupt into flame, taking the form of several bizarre, grinning clowns of various sizes. They stand silently, wreathed in fire, an unsettling and surreal sight. A confident smile spreads across Hayato's face as he addresses his fiery creations. He commands the frantic clowns to dance. At his word, the fiery figures immediately dash forward. The treant can only stare in utter shock as the small, burning jesters charge towards it. Its shock gives way to rage as the clowns swarm its massive body, leaping onto its hardened bark. The treant finds it impossible that this thing, Hayato summoned, dares to call itself a god. Its fury boils over as one of the small, fiery figures lands directly on its face. The treant bellows, enraged by the sheer audacity and mockery of the attack. It swings a massive limb with incredible speed, roaring for the nuisance to be gone. The branch connects with the clown, causing it to detonate in a violent burst of flame and smoke. The destruction of one is meaningless. The remaining clowns continue their relentless assault, swarming the treant and exploding one after another in a continuous, sizzling barrage against its body. The barrage of fiery explosions continues to rock the battlefield as the summoned clowns detonate against their target. Amidst the smoke and chaos, Hattori Suzuna charges forward, blades at the ready. Watching the colossal treant withstand the assault, Hayato speaks to the spectral form of RA looming behind him. He remarks that the creature is stubborn, expressing surprise that his previous attack hadn't already shattered its core. Its glowing eyes narrow with contempt. The ancient being mocks the effort, asking if this meager assault is all the power he possesses. It then lets out a defiant roar, declaring that in this space, no one can possibly match its power. The treant proclaims that this must surely be the limit of a mere human. Hayato's expression hardens as he looks on. He calmly tells the creature not to misunderstand the situation, as a dark energy begins to rise from the ground around him. As countless ghostly hands materialize from the swirling shadows, he announces the next stage of his power, Phase Ascension. RA, he now floats in the air, fully enveloped by the multi-armed spectral form of the deity and a legion of grasping, ethereal hands. From the ground below, both the treant and a stunned Hattori Suzuna stare up, the latter wondering what in the world he has become. Holding a spectral staff, he calmly addresses them from above, reiterating his previous claim. He had already told them, he is a god. The swarm of ghostly hands surges forward, beginning to engulf the giant tree monster. As the ethereal tide washes over it, the treant roars that the time of ruin has come. With his hand outstretched, Hayato passes judgment. He commands the treant to suffer the pain of all those it has killed. He unleashes the final stage of his assault, a torrent of divine power he calls the flames of the end. The immense energy surges forward, completely engulfing the colossal treant. The divine onslaught tears into the ancient being. Its wooden face contorts in agony, groaning as its very form begins to crack and splinter under the immense pressure. The cracking sound echoes across the landscape as the wave of power obliterates not just the treant, but the entire surrounding forest. With a final, agonizing cry that echoes through the devastation, the treant's core shatters, marking the definitive end of the battle. As the echoes of destruction fade, Hayato's feet touch down on the now barren ground, the immense energy he commanded finally dissipating. He stands amidst the desolation, his clothes torn. The spectral form of his RA summoned fades away behind him as he winces, remarking to himself that the backlash stings and that he probably won't be taking a bath for a while. Surveying the vast, empty wasteland he has created, he stands as a solitary figure under an open sky. Despite the overwhelming victory, a quiet realization settles upon him. He still has a long way to go. Beneath a sky of scattered white clouds, a moment of peace settles over the barren landscape. The calm shatters as Yanagi Hayato and Hattori Suzuna look up, startled, as the invisible barrier around them cracks and falls away like broken glass. His attention shifts to Suzuna, who is kneeling on the ground. He asks if she is all right, noting with relief that it seems they can finally escape. She looks up at him, her expression one of pure confusion. She quickly gets to her feet, stammering that she is okay. Hayato calls out her name, his voice laced with concern. Suzuna turns to him, explaining that she was simply taken aback by his power. She then presses him, reminding him that just moments ago, he was saying something about being a god. He looks away, seemingly having no memory of the event. Confused by his silence, she demands to know who he really is, but he just deflects, asking what she could possibly be talking about. He turns back with a disarming smile, stating plainly that he is Yanagi Hayato, nothing more and nothing less. Suzuna lets out an exasperated sound, clearly unconvinced. She changes the subject, her tone becoming serious as she accuses him of planning to sacrifice himself to defeat the monster. Hayato sighs, wondering aloud if he truly seems that unreliable. Flustered, Suzuna waves her hands dismissively and claims to have no idea what he means. She begins to explain that his actions reminded her of a time when she was a rookie, when a senior sacrificed himself to save her. Realizing she said too much, she cuts herself off with a shout, insisting that's not what she meant at all. She continues her tearful explanation, her gaze lowered as she admits that this time, she thought it was her turn. Her turn to sacrifice herself in order to save him. Her hand rests on her chest, her expression a mixture of desperation and earnest conviction. Her confession hangs in the desolate air between them. They stand amidst the rubble, a silent moment passing as Hayato processes her words. He finally looks at her, his expression serious and unwavering. With a quiet intensity, he begins to speak, stating that he hates that idea. His blunt rejection of her way of thinking catches her completely off guard, her eyes widening in shock. He clarifies his stance, acknowledging that while dying for someone is a painful choice, he won't say that her feelings are wrong. He then adds the crucial point. The pain is far greater for the one who is left behind. His words visibly affect her, causing her to tremble slightly. Looking at her directly, he offers a new path. He tells her she doesn't need the resolve to die. Instead, they should fight together with the resolve to survive. A determined smile forms on his face as he makes a vow, declaring that he refuses to lose, no matter what they are up against. He concludes his promise with unwavering conviction, looking directly at her as he states, "I will be the one to protect you." Suzuna is left stunned and speechless. She looks at him, still processing his vow, and asks why he would go to such lengths for her. Hayato explains that she was the one who pulled him out of the gray, suffocating life he had been living. He places a hand over his heart, his expression earnest, and declares that to him, she is his benefactor. He urges her to rely on him for anything, without hesitation. Her expression softens as she quietly asks if he is truly sure about taking on such a burden. He smiles, confirming that it is exactly what he is hoping for. Suzuna playfully warns that she might just take him up on the offer, admitting she's more trouble than she's worth. In response, Hayato extends his hand with absolute confidence, proclaiming that it doesn't matter because he is the strongest. Accepting his outstretched hand, Suzuna's face breaks into a bright, determined smile as she clasps it firmly. With their pact sealed, they emerge hand in hand from the darkness of the cave. Outside, their comrades Kongu and Serenji are waiting, revealing that a rescue mission had already been underway. Seeing them emerge, Kongu immediately takes charge, ordering Serenji to get Suzuna to Kurosaka quickly. He then calls out to the pair, expressing concern as he notes that Hayato is covered in wounds. As they walk, Serenji puts a reassuring arm around Hayato, telling him not to worry. She promises that Mocha's healing abilities will have him good as new in no time, and Suzuna smiles in agreement. Despite the positive atmosphere, a thoughtful look crosses Hayato's face. He internally muses that he wishes it were all that simple. The group walks onward together, seemingly having defied Kokuri's prophecy by all making it back alive. A sense of collective relief hangs in the air. He receives praise for his efforts, a simple, "well done, Yanagi," which brings a faint, weary smile to his face. Following the intense battle, a quiet stillness settles over the landscape. A few days pass. Hayato awakens in a sterile room at the Iryu General Hospital, recovering from his injuries. He recalls the aftermath of the fight, where one of the Kurosaka sisters had lamented that her healing ability wasn't enough to mend him completely. Despite her distress, Hayato privately acknowledged that her powers had worked far better than he had anticipated. As he rests, a cheerful voice suddenly cuts through the quiet, announcing a visitor. It is his sister, Ao, who has come to see him. She enters the room, accompanied by Hattori Suzuna. Both are dressed in nurse uniforms, and Ao brightly asks how he is feeling. He stares, momentarily speechless and blushing, barely managing to stammer his sister's name. His confusion gives way to a flustered outburst as he demands to know what they are wearing, recognizing the outfits as nurses' uniforms even as he asks. Ao, blushing slightly, explains that she was told he would like this kind of thing. Hayato retorts that it's not that he dislikes it, but that's not the issue. His attention then shifts, and he questions why Hattori is there as well. Despite his protests, a thought crosses his mind, a mixture of embarrassment and undeniable appreciation for the sight before him. He found the sight of his visitors quite something. Suzuna, flustered, begged him not to stare. As Ao departed, Hayato internally acknowledged that while this was his sister's doing, he had to give her praise. The embarrassment was too much for Suzuna, who pleaded for him to stop. Once the initial awkwardness subsided, she took a seat by his hospital bed. He assured her that he was almost completely healed, but she pressed further, asking how he was really doing. Her expression grew serious as she inquired about his condition, asking if the burns he sustained were a side effect of his ability. He confirmed her suspicion with a confident smile, explaining that he had figured out he was up against an S-rank opponent and had no choice but to use his power. She seemed to accept his reasoning. He then added that ranks were meaningless to his sister, Ao, whose ability made no distinction between an S-rank and an F-rank foe. His curiosity piqued by the mention of his sister. He asked to see. Suzuna presented her phone, casually mentioning that Ao's score had been rising and reminding him to call their mother soon. On the screen, a single, staggering number was displayed, 95080. He stared at the number in disbelief. To put in perspective, he explained a top-tier high school student score is around 10,000. For a middle schooler like Ao to have such a score was unheard of. She was likely the only one in the entire country. The implications of the score seemed to trouble him, and he asked Suzuna if anything was wrong. She replied that she was the same as always, but he sensed something was off, thinking that while it wasn't at a critical level yet, it was still a concern. She then elaborated, explaining that she had been doing some boxing at home and making straw dolls. The bizarre combination of activities shocked Hayato, who exclaimed that her mind was wandering far too much. He stares, aghast, shouting that normal middle school girls do not make straw dolls. From her seat, Suzuna calmly questions this, asking if it isn't a normal activity. His bewildered train of thought is broken by the vibration of his phone. A sudden urgency grips him. He realizes he must call his mother immediately. He clutches his head, a bead of sweat forming as he worries about his sister's body having deteriorated so much without his knowledge. Just then, he glances at the screen and sees the incoming call is from Kongu. As the phone continues to buzz, His expression hardens with resolve. Moments later, standing in his sister's hospital room, he answers the call. This is Yanagi, he reports into the phone. From her bed, Ao looks on, quietly affirming yes. While walking down a stark white corridor, Kangatakaru holds a phone to his ear, identifying himself and asking if something is wrong. The call connects to Yanagi Hayato, who is in a room with his sister, Ao, and confirms his identity. Hayato's eyes widen slightly in surprise. On the other end of the line, Kongo asks about his injuries, and Hayato reports that he is almost fully healed, a fact that brings him a palpable sense of relief. Hearing this, Kongo pauses his stride. The word relief catches his attention, and he questions if something specific has occurred. He doesn't wait for a reply, instead explaining the urgent reason for his call. An emergency Imperial Council meeting is scheduled to happen shortly. He warns Hayato that, depending on the situation, his strength might be needed once more. Hayato acknowledges the gravity of the situation, confirming that he understands and will be prepared. Konga states he will call again after the meeting concludes. After the call ends, Hayato looks toward his sister, Ao, who is seated in a chair with her hands bound. She remarks that he is already in high demand, like a full-fledged member of the unit, and he confirms he may have to deploy again. From a view of the general hospital, Ao's voice is heard, expressing both her unwavering belief in his victory and her concern that he not push himself too hard. The scene transitions to the Imperial Council, where a man stands at a podium in a grand chamber, thanking the assembled members for gathering on such short notice. This is no ordinary meeting. It is an assembly of national defense veterans and the heads of anti-secrecy organizations. Kangatakaru is seated among them, his face set with grim determination. The presence of other illustrious figures, including Kukuri Hana and Hayato's own teacher, further underscores the immense gravity of the situation they have all been convened to address. At the head of the table, the man presiding over the council is identified by his nameplate, Shirakami Jinya, the Anti-Monster Task Force executive. With a commanding presence, he formally begins the meeting. He began the emergency meeting, his hands clasped before him. With all preliminary documents reviewed, he announced the agenda. The matter concerning the second daughter of the Takamiya family, one of Japan's most distinguished clans. A murmur of shock went through the council as he continued, revealing that sensitive information had been leaked to the outside. Specifically, details about her ability, Origin Sublime, which he stressed is exceptionally rare and valuable. Building on his point, Kukuri Hana interjected with a grim report. Her expression was tense as she confirmed that numerous hostile agents, or rats, were already in position to attempt an abduction. In light of this immediate threat, Shirakami Jinya declared their top priority was ensuring the daughter's safety. He then turned his attention to Kongo Takaru, formally requesting the opinion of the Special Countermeasures Unit. Kongo acknowledged with a firm yes. He confidently laid out his plan. The Takamiya family already possessed a heavily fortified protection facility. He proposed using Sarenji's teleportation ability to move the target, which would allow them to secure her without any external exposure. However, his proposal was immediately challenged. Samejima Yoshido, the Kyushu branch chief of defense, spoke up, stating that this presented a slight problem. He revealed that his branch was currently dealing with a series of mysterious disappearances in Kyushu, all perpetrated by monsters. The Kyushu chief elaborated on the complication, his tone serious. He explained that they specifically required Lady Sarenji's power to resolve the matter in his jurisdiction, putting the council's resources in direct conflict. Kongo was visibly surprised by this revelation. He questioned the news, stating it was the first he was hearing of any mysterious disappearances. Samejima countered that they had only obtained conclusive evidence of the situation just the other day. His surprise turned to contemplation. A woman on the council asserted that it would be no issue to send Reika. Internally, Kongo had to agree that using Sarenji's ability was indeed the best way to rescue those who had disappeared. The woman's voice identified another figure at the table, Lord Yugen, Reika's own father and the head of the Sarenji family. He is a man who supports the nation by supplying its weaponry, and he sat with arms crossed, observing the debate over his daughter's deployment. He addresses the council, stating his understanding that a great many protectors have already gathered at the Takamiya estate and that they employ their own ability users. Shirakami Jinya concurs, adding that dispatching the Special Countermeasures Unit on top of that seems excessive. This news is met with relief from Kangatakaru. Sarenji Yugen then makes a significant offer, declaring that he will personally send a shipment of weapons to the Takamiya family. Kongo agrees that this course of action is for the best. He then confirms that the Special Countermeasures Unit will proceed with the escort mission for the Takamiya daughter as soon as the Kyushu matter is settled. His eyes narrow as he processes the decision, quietly accepting the proposed plan. With the debate resolved, Samejima Yoshido makes the official declaration. The Special Countermeasures Unit will proceed to Kyushu to subjugate the unidentified monster. Sarenji Yugen confirms with a confident gesture that his family will provide the necessary weaponry for the Takamiya's defense. The final directive is issued to ensure a swift response in case of an emergency. All other parties are to remain on standby. With all matters settled and assignments given, the meeting is formally concluded. As Kangatakaru begins to stand, Sarenji Yugen calls out, asking for a moment of his time. Kanga readily agrees. After Kanga departs, Seirenji Yugen and Samejima Yoshido share a silent, knowing look across the room. In a sterile white corridor, Kanga Takaru turns with a start as Shirakami Jinya walks past, followed by a silent, masked attendant. Shirakami pauses, gesturing to his companion. He explains that the man is his liaison with the outside world, revealing him to be a telepath. As they proceed, Takaru addresses Shirakami directly, admitting that something about the earlier meeting had concerned him. Shirakami glances back, his interest piqued, as his masked aide bows his head. They enter a secure, circular chamber. Takaru immediately assesses the room, noting aloud that it must be protected by a soundproofing barrier. Shirakami offers a slight, approving smile, commending the young commander on his sharp perception. The purpose of the secure room becomes clear to Takaru. He realizes this is meant to be a completely private conversation, shielded from any potential eavesdroppers. With their privacy assured, Shirakami makes a startling request. He needs Takaru to send a single operative to the Takamiya family as a guard. Takaru is visibly shocked, protesting that this would mean ignoring Lord Yugen's public statement. In response, Shirakami reveals the truth of the matter. The proposal, he explains, came from Lord Yugen himself, who suspects there is a mole within the royal council. Takaru is stunned by the revelation. He continues, clarifying that Lord Yugen's public announcement was a false strategy, designed specifically to draw the traitor out. The word mole hangs in the air as Takaru fully grasps the situation's gravity. Shirakami's face hardens, his eyes filled with cold resolve. He declares that they cannot allow a malignant presence among the nation's rulers and vows that they will use this opportunity to purge them all. His proposal hung in the air. Kanga Takaru, startled, considered the implications. A covert protection detail would be difficult. The leadership knew his people inside and out. Shirakami smiled knowingly, acknowledging the new recruit in Takaru's ranks. He pointed out that there was one man the leadership was not yet familiar with. The mention of this specific individual startled Shirakami's masked aide. Shirakami continued, expressing some regret for assigning such a task to a rookie, but promised to send a gift later to compensate. He insisted that the last thing he wanted was for his organization to be seen as exploitative. His aide, still flustered by the decision, snapped to attention, stammering Shirakami's name. Unperturbed, Shirakami simply asked what was wrong. Whatever the aide whispered to him had a profound effect. Shirakami's composure shattered, his eyes wide with shock as he demanded the aide repeat himself. Seeing his superior's sudden distress, Kanga Takaru asked what was wrong. Ignoring Takaru, Shirakami gave a sharp order to his aide. Understood. Do not take your eyes off him. His face was grim, beads of sweat forming on his brow. With a tone of grave finality, he announced that the King of Destruction had arrived. Meanwhile, at an airport, the subject of their alarm had just set foot on Japanese soil. The newcomer walked through the terminal, reflecting internally that it had been some time since his last visit to Japan. He held a document in his hand, a monster subjugation report. It detailed the defeat of an S-rank monster in the Labyrinthine Cave, accomplished by an individual named Yanagi Hayato, who was listed as having an unranked world rank. The man holding the report smiled with predatory interest. He mused aloud. Looks like someone interesting has shown up. This was Abel Leon, known as the Absolute, rank 7. At an airport terminal, a powerfully built young man with light, messy hair pulls a rolling suitcase, a report clutched in his other hand. A confident smirk crosses his face as he observes his surroundings, remarking to himself that someone interesting seems to have shown up. The document he holds is a monster subjugation report. It details the defeat of an S-rank monster in the Labyrinthine Cave by Yanagi Hayato, an individual with a world rank listed as unranked. Through the window, an airplane rests on the tarmac. Nearby, a group of students, including Yanagi Hayato and his sister Ao, take notice of the imposing man. One comments on his immense height, guessing he must be at least 2 meters tall, while Ao remarks on his muscular chest. Hayato's expression suddenly shifts from casual observation to one of startled recognition. He realizes with a shock that the man is Abel Leon, one of the fabled Absolutes. The Absolutes are a group of 8 ultimate beings known to the world, individuals who have completely surpassed the limits of humanity, casting a powerful, intimidating shadow over all. Abel Leon takes a seat in the airport lounge. It is said that the power of these individuals rivals even that of the gods, with a single one capable of slaughtering multiple S-rank monsters. Consequently, governments worldwide have long since given up any attempts to control them. He is Absolute rank 7, known by the fearsome title King of Destruction. His fighting methods are notoriously brutal, and he is indeed one of these 8 legendary figures. He glances down at the report again, a thoughtful look on his face. The idea of an unranked nobody taking down an S-rank monster is completely unheard of, a true anomaly. A sharp, predatory grin spreads across Abel's face as he decides he would like to meet this boy and ask him a few questions. In the background, Yanagi Hayato walks away, oblivious to the fact that he has captured the attention of the King of Destruction. He sits casually in a waiting area, a suitcase by his side, remarking to a man in a suit that the Japanese government is quick to catch a scent. The government agent, visibly nervous, offers his sincerest apologies. He explains that even a single action from Lord Leon has the power to influence the entire nation, justifying their swift response. He brushes off the agent's concern, stating he is used to such attention. The agent then presses on, asking the purpose of his current visit to Japan. With a confident smirk, he replies that he is merely following a hunch that something interesting is about to happen, noting his hunches are usually right. He then rises, casually putting an arm around the startled agent, and declares that finding a good place to eat is more important, offering to pay. Elsewhere, at the Japan branch of the Special Countermeasures Unit, Kanga Takara briefs Yanagi Hayato. He apologizes for assigning a solo escort mission so soon after Hayato's recent injury. Hayato assures him it is not a problem, stating he understands the circumstances. Takaru elaborates on the mission's sensitive nature. To expose corruption within the upper echelons, Hayato must conceal his identity and blend in with the regular guards. Processing this, he then asks about the subject of the escort, questioning if the ability possessed by the Takamiya family's second daughter is truly that valuable. Takaru's demeanor turns serious as he confirms the gravity of the situation. He describes her power, origin sublime, as a troublesome ability that can enhance the power of anything, not limited to living beings. He considers this, agreeing that such a powerful and versatile ability would undoubtedly make its user target. With renewed resolve, he stands at attention and bows respectfully. He formally accepts the assignment, stating that if Takaru has placed his faith in him, he will humbly accept. Takaru simply thanks him. He turns, startled, as Kanga Takaru calls his name from a nearby doorway. Approaching him, Kanga states that there is something he needs to discuss regarding Hayato's ability. The two relocate to a rooftop overlooking the city. Kangu offers a canned beverage, asking if black coffee is acceptable. Hayato takes it, offering his thanks. As Hayato looks at the can, Kangu poses a question. Has there ever been a human born with multiple abilities? Unseen by Hayato, Kanga discreetly drops a small, dark object into the open can. He considers the question for a moment before replying that he does not believe so. Kangu agrees, confirming that possessing multiple abilities is normally impossible. He then speculates that if such a person could exist, they would become an absolute being capable of handling any situation. His tone becomes serious as he begins to explain the history behind his query. Long ago, the government initiated research to artificially create a user with multiple abilities. The story continues. They found a compatible woman, and for a time, the experiment was considered a success. Or so it seemed. However, the woman's body and soul proved too small to contain the power of multiple abilities. Nothing was sufficient. A mere week later, she died in a catastrophic failure of the experiment. Kangu concludes his grim tale, stating that the experiment was halted immediately. At that time, not even a body ranked in the single digits worldwide could have withstood the strain. He listens as Kangu explains that the experiment was one of the government's top secret matters, not something that would leak to the outside world so easily. Hayato, still holding the drink, expresses his shock, stating he had no idea something like that had ever happened. His expression turns serious as he looks up at the older operative, asking why Kangu would tell him something so important. Kangu's gaze meets his from across the rooftop railing, his response simple and direct. Because it's you. He elaborates on the cryptic statement, revealing that he heard from Hattori. She had reported that the ability Hayato used to defeat the monster in the cave was different from the one he had previously shown. The implication hangs heavy in the air as Kangu's voice lowers, posing the critical question, are you a multiple ability user? The question echoes between them on the rooftop, stark against the open sky. Hayato remains silent, processing the direct accusation. Kangu watches him intently, a bead of sweat on his temple as he awaits the answer. After a tense moment, he turns to face Kangu and states plainly that, in terms of abilities, he only has one. The response seems to surprise Kangu, who questions the claim. Sensing the disbelief, Hayato bows his head apologetically. He promises to explain everything in detail when the time comes. Kangu raises a hand, reassuring him that he isn't trying to rush an answer. He claims he just got a little worried, thinking about the grim outcome of the past experiment. He concludes their discussion with a word of caution, advising Hayato to be extremely careful when using his powers. He stresses that only Hayato can truly know the state of his own body. Hayato offers a seemingly earnest smile, confirming that he understands. In response, Kanga states that he is counting on him. As Hayato turns to leave, a sudden, sharp pain seizes him, causing him to double over and clutch his stomach. From a distance, Kangu watches impassively. He struggles against the pain, his hand reaching into his uniform to retrieve a small object, while Kangu continues to observe him. The item is a simple, silver locket. With a faint click, his thumb presses it open. Inside, a photograph of his sister, Ao, smiles back at him, her expression bright and cheerful as she makes a peace sign. From his position on the rooftop, Kanga Takaru's gaze remains fixed on the scene. His expression is stern and contemplative as he watches the younger man. Under a full moon, the city skyline is quiet. A tall, weathered apartment building stands stark against the night sky, its balconies casting long shadows. Inside a dimly lit room, A man in a lab coat laughs with manic energy, expressing his disbelief that the entity known as the Great Tree has been defeated. Behind him, a vision shows a shadowy figure standing over the fallen form of Yanagi Hayato. The discussion is joined by others. A formless, shadowy being notes that even a rotten S-rank like the tree should have been able to kill at least one of them. Nearby, a large, horned Oni-like figure growls in frustration, declaring that he should have handled the matter from start. The scientist turns to the Oni, asking what happened. The horned being scoffs, stating simply that their opponent was weak. The shadowy being interjects with new information. It explains that it visited the cave where the battle took place and discovered faint traces of a flame ability having been used. This revelation startles the scientist. He questions the finding, pointing out that there shouldn't be any flame users within Japan's Special Countermeasures Unit. A sudden, shocking realization dawns on him. He stammers, his eyes wide behind his glasses, as he considers the possibility that they are dealing with a user of multiple abilities. The shadowy being confirms his suspicion is a possibility, stating that this is precisely why it dispatched that person. The scientist's composure shatters, replaced by a manic glee. He shouts that he wants them, that they must acquire them at any cost. The scientist quickly offers an apology for his outburst, but the shadowy being tells him to calm himself and not lose sight of their objective. Despite the admonishment, the scientist's face contorts into a horrifying grin as he fantasizes about dissecting his new targets and learning the secrets of their body structure. The shadowy being elaborates that absorbing such an ability would lead to a significant increase in their group's power. It then pivots the conversation, stating that they have all gathered to discuss the matter of that little girl. The hulking, horned Oni interrupts the ongoing discussion, his voice a guttural roar as he demands to know the girl's location. The amorphous being calmly informs him that their target is currently at the Takamiya residence, but adds that she is expected to be moved to a protection facility soon. The Oni's demeanor shifts to glee at this news. He declares that the situation sounds fun, especially upon hearing that she will have a whole swarm of skilled guards. He bellows with excitement, proclaiming that as long as he gets to Rampage, he couldn't care less. He vows to slaughter every last one of them. Watching this display, the long-haired scientist sighs in exasperation, muttering that the Oni is nothing more than a meathead. Meanwhile, the location of this impending conflict, the Takamiya residence, stands as an opulent and sprawling mansion. Arriving at the estate, Hayato Tsurasaki is startled when a voice announces they have been expecting him. He looks around in awe, remarking to himself on the immense wealth required to build such a place. He turns to the speaker, a sharply dressed man, and introduces himself with the alias Kashiwagi. The man smiles and replies that his name is Ikkaku, and he's the head butler. Ikkaku gestures for him to enter, welcoming him inside. Hayato thanks him, internally confirming that Kashiwagi is the alias he will use for this mission. As they walk through the grand foyer, Ikkaku expresses the household's immense gratitude for his assistance in a matter of great urgency. He notes that they've heard Kashiwagi is a highly skilled ability user, which they find very reassuring for the escort mission. He is met with a direct question from the butler, Ikkaku, who wishes to confirm his reason for accepting this mission. In response, Hayato explains that the master of the house once helped him out of a financial bind, and he is here to repay that kindness. Internally, he notes the butler's wariness, considering it an expected precaution. The butler's expression softens into a warm smile. He accepts the explanation, remarking that the master was always one who could not turn his back on someone in need. As they walk down the opulent hallway, Hayato silently breathes a sigh of relief. He believes he has successfully hidden his affiliation with the Special Countermeasures Unit, but knows he cannot let his guard down for a second. Ikkaku stops before a set of large, ornate double doors. He knocks gently, announcing his name and stating that the young mistresses are waiting inside before granting Hayato permission to enter. The doors swing open to reveal two figures standing in the center of the room, a young woman with a composed posture and a small girl clutching a stuffed rabbit. Hayato's eyes widen slightly as the young woman introduces herself with poise as Takamiya Haruka, the eldest daughter of the family. He observes her, thinking that her dignified and confident expression is far more mature than what one would expect from a young girl. After the butler's surprising formality, her presence is another unexpected element. Haruka then turns to the small child beside her, gently prompting her to give her own greeting. The little girl looks up timidly, clutching her rabbit, and stammers out her name, Runa Takamiya. She looks up at Hayato, clutching her stuffed rabbit, and asks with childlike innocence if he is a good person. Her direct question catches him by surprise, as he internally identifies her as one of the targets of his mission. Before he can fully formulate a response, her face breaks into a bright, relieved smile as she exclaims that she's glad. In return, Hayato offers a warm smile of his own, assuring her that he is, in fact, an exceptionally good person. His answer seems to have worked. Ikkaku, the butler, observes that Hayato has apparently earned the young girl's trust. With that settled, he announces that it is time to explain the details of the escort mission. He gathers Hayato and the two sisters, laying out the core objective, to transport Lady Haruka and Lady Runa to a secure protection facility. Ikkaku clarifies their current numbers, stating that the four of them are at the Takamiya residence, along with 16 other guards. To accomplish this, he continues, they will utilize a convoy of 5 cars, with 4 people assigned to each. The vehicle carrying the young mistresses will be protected by the other cars surrounding it in formation. He then turns his attention directly to Hayato, seeking confirmation. He asks if Hayato is, as he understands it, a detection-type ability user. Hayato simply affirms with a yes. His simple agreement, however, is a lie. Internally, Hayato acknowledges that while his Mars ability is not a true detection type, its sensory perception is more than sufficient to function as one. Believing the claim, Ikkaku assigns him to the same vehicle as himself and the young mistresses. The butler explains that he will require constant updates on their surroundings from Lord Kashiwagi. Having listened to the entire plan, Haruka gives a firm, "You may proceed." With her approval granted, Ikkaku formally concludes the briefing. Just as he finishes, the doors swing open. A bald man in sunglasses, leading a group of guards, reports loudly to Ikkaku that the cars are ready and all guards are set to go. Just before departure, the butler, Ikkaku, apologizes to Hayato for rushing him so soon after his arrival. Hayato tells him not to worry, and Ikkaku confirms his understanding. He then reaffirms his purpose, stating with resolve that the safety of the young mistresses is the absolute top priority. With the final preparations complete, the 5-car convoy speeds onto the highway. Inside the vehicles, the security detail, Hayato, and the Takamiya sisters are all in their assigned positions, the mission now underway. From the driver's seat of the main car, Ikkaku checks in with Hayato, asking if he detects any anomalies. Looking through the windshield, Hayato reports that there are no irregularities within his detection range. He maintains a calm exterior, but internally acknowledges the difficulty of his deception. The detection range of his Mars ability is a 300-meter radius, and the constant sensory input from every consciousness within it is incredibly draining. The mental fatigue causes him to startle at a small movement beside him, where the 2 Takamiya sisters are seated quietly. The younger sister, Runa, trembles as she clutches her stuffed rabbit, tears welling in her eyes. "One-ichan," she whispers to her older sister, "I'm scared." In response, the older sister, Haruka, offers a gentle smile. "It's all right," she says softly. "Some very strong people are here protecting you." She then gently pats Runa's head, a simple, comforting gesture that Hayato observes from his seat. His expression hardens. The sight fills him with a quiet fury as he realizes his power forces him to sense their fear directly. He clenches his fist, questioning why these young sisters must endure such a terrifying ordeal. His senses flare, detecting an imminent threat targeting the convoy. A cold resolve hardens his expression as he makes a silent, absolute vow. He will not let anyone lay a single finger on these girls. In that same instant, a projectile screams through the air, a dark streak closing in on the highway. The shot originated from a figure concealed in tactical gear. Kneeling with practiced stability inside a moving vehicle, the masked sniper keeps their weapon trained on the target. On a bright, clear day, a black sedan travels along a multi-lane highway, surrounded by city traffic and towering buildings. From a high vantage point, a figure clad in dark tactical gear takes aim with a high-caliber sniper rifle, their finger tightening on the trigger. Inside the sedan, the passengers react with sudden alarm. Ikkaku, gripping the steering wheel, urgently reports a sniper confirmed in a building 270 meters to their front right as the car begins to swerve sharply. The sniper's round impacts the asphalt just ahead of another vehicle, erupting in a violent spray of dust and debris. As their car continues its evasive maneuver, a second bullet streaks towards them, only to be stopped dead in its tracks by a swirling vortex of sand that materializes out of thin air. The sniper recoils in disbelief, finding impossible that their shot was blocked unless their position was already known. In the car, Kashiwagi watches the sand dissipate and understands. Ikkaku has the power to control it. The butler lets out a quiet sigh of relief. He turns to the driver with a newfound understanding and a smile. "You're a sand operator ability user, aren't you?" he asks. Ikkaku glances back, his expression calm and pleasant. "Yes," he confirms. "It may seem plain, but it's very versatile, so I'm quite fond of it." Kashiwagi contemplates the power's vast potential. It could be used to force an enemy to inhale sand and destroy them from within, or to deliver attacks with immense weight. He concludes that it is a flawless ability. As the sniper retreats from their perch, Ikkaku's expression turns grim. "If only that were the case," he murmurs. His somber tone prompts Kashiwagi to ask, "Couldn't you protect her all by yourself, Ikkaku-san?" Elsewhere, on a highway overpass, a monstrous, horned Oni demonstrates its immense power, effortlessly lifting a heavy truck high into the air. With a powerful heave, it hurls the vehicle forward, sending it soaring off the overpass. Simultaneously, inside their car, Kashiwagi looks back and reports to Ikkaku that 3 cars are approaching from the rear at high speed. Ikkaku calmly acknowledges the information. In the trailing security vehicle, the bald team leader addresses his men, telling them to leave the rear guard to them. His subordinates confirm they are ready. He grips the steering wheel with a confident smirk, stating that he's counting on his team and will blow their pursuers to smithereens once they are in range. As the 3 heavily armored vehicles close in from behind, the security leader scoffs, questioning if such armor could possibly block a single strike from his life amplification ability. Before he can act, the truck thrown by the Oni slams down from above, crashing directly into the pursuing armored cars and erupting in a massive explosion of twisted metal. The shockwave rattles their vehicle. Kashiwagi and Ikkaku turn in alarm, looking back at the sudden chaos and wreckage strewn across the highway. What happened? Kashiwagi stammers. Having survived the crash, the day's security leader stands by the roadside with his men, reporting what he saw. He explains that a truck came flying in from the side and took out the armored cars. As they stare at the fiery devastation, the hulking form of the Oni emerges from the smoke. Its voice booms across the highway, declaring, "That prey is ours." He stands amidst the wreckage, a monstrous Oni with prominent horns, holding a small, peculiar creature. He issues a stern warning, telling them not to dare try and snatch it. From a distance, Kashiwagi and the security detail watch in disbelief. Kashiwagi realizes this is not just any monster, but a talking one, likely of A rank or higher. This realization hits him hard. He had let his guard down, assuming their only pursuers were human. The appearance of a monster completely changes the situation. Inside the car, Haruka and Runa watch the unfolding scene with wide, fearful eyes. He curses his own naivete, his eyes narrowing in self-reproach. He considers it a rookie mistake, his situational awareness as a Unity member proving pathetic in this critical moment. While Kashiwagi is lost in thought, the security leader and his men refuse to be intimidated. They charge forward, shouting that the Oni is the one who is going to die. The demon greets their advance with a cruel grin, asking who among them wants to be the first to perish. In response to the taunt, the security leader lunges, his fist connecting with the Oni's chest in a massive impact. The demon's torso explodes in a spray of dark fluid and viscera as the leader's hand glows with residual energy. The devastating blow seems to have ended the fight. The security leader kneels, catching his breath, believing he's been saved. However, the Oni, though grievously wounded, simply remarks with amusement on the interesting ability that was just used against him. Before their eyes, the Oni's flesh begins to rapidly regenerate. He casually lifts a large gourd to his lips and takes a long drink, remarking that his opponent looks like he can do something interesting after all. This casual act in the middle of combat triggers a shocking realization for Kashiwagi. He stares in disbelief, processing the scene, an Oni drinking sake during a battle. The pieces click into place in his mind, pointing to a specific legendary figure. He gives voice to his dawning horror, identifying the demon before him with a name of legend, Shuten Duji. The name hangs in the air. The Oni, Shuten Duji, lowers his gourd, a look of mild surprise on his face. He smiles, acknowledging that someone present knows who he is. He is Shuten Duji, one of Japan's 3 great yokai. He possesses a unique attribute that strengthens him the more sake he drinks. As the monstrous yokai stood his ground, Kashiwagi turned to the butler, Ikkaku, for information. He asked what the highest ability score among the guards was. Ikkaku replied that he believed it was around 100,000. He processed this information with grim certainty, realizing it was nowhere near enough. He understood that there wasn't just one enemy, and while he had no choice but to step in, he hesitated. His senses scanned the area, confirming his fears. He couldn't see them, but he knew someone else was nearby, someone on the same level of power as the Oni. He glanced back towards the car, his mind racing through the tactical nightmare. He realized that if he left his current position to fight the Oni, the other unseen enemy would likely snatch Runa. The weight of the dilemma pressed down on him, his hand clenching into a fist. He cursed his own inexperience in fighting while protecting someone, unsure of what to do. As he stood frozen by indecision, his attention was suddenly drawn to something at his feet. He looked down, a question forming on his face as he noticed a pair of shoes had appeared before him. He looked up to see a young man with a confident smirk, holding a skewer of dango. The newcomer casually addressed him, asking if something was wrong, calling him kiddo. Startled by the sudden and casual appearance of this stranger amidst the immense tension, he could only stare, silently wondering who this person was. A young man with light, messy hair, casually eating from a skewer, notices Hayato's stare. He addresses the boy directly, asking if something is wrong. Hayato, caught off guard by the attention, looks up with a blank expression and simply asks, "Who?" Before the man can answer, Ikkaku gasps in recognition. Staring at the newcomer's distinctive red hair and the imposing horned figure of Shuten Duji beside him, the butler identifies the man as Abel Leon. Abel Leon nonchalantly explains that he was just grabbing some yakitori nearby when he heard the commotion and decided to take a look. Ikkaku is flabbergasted, questioning why a person of his renown would be in such a place. Hayato, however, remains completely unfazed. He internally concludes that he has no interest in strangers, wondering to himself if this Abel Leon is supposed to be famous. Standing beside a car, Ikkaku surveys the chaotic scene. He notes aloud that the special countermeasures unit hasn't arrived yet, and grimly adds that he can sense not only Shuten Duji, but another S-rank monster in the vicinity as well. The gravity of the situation makes Ikkaku express immense relief at Abel's presence. Seeing this, Abel sighs, conceding that he has no choice but to lend a hand. He then turns to Shutenduji with a wide, mocking grin, asking if the Oni has a death wish for picking a fight with him. The monster roars in delight, declaring this is exactly what he wanted, a chance to kill the Absolute. He bellows for Leon to fight him, promising it will be a slaughter. Unfazed, Abel casually drops his empty skewer, which cracks the pavement upon impact. Fine by me, he states calmly, deciding to consider this his post-meal workout. As Sekai wisely steps back, Abel faces the hulking Oni. With a confident smirk, he announces, "I'll play with you for a bit." He faced the hulking Oni, a confident smirk playing on his lips. Shutenduji stood opposite, a menacing presence radiating from his powerful frame, the air crackling with anticipation for the clash to come. His gaze sharpened, a flicker of deadly intent narrowing within his eye. In an instant, he closed the distance, unleashing a powerful right hook aimed directly at the demon's chest. The blow landed with a sickening crack, the force of it visibly fracturing the monster's tough hide. The sheer power of the strike sent the massive Oni hurtling backward through the air, completely lifted from his feet. He dug his heels into the ground, carving deep furrows into the earth as he skidded to a violent halt. Looking up, a wide, predatory grin spread across Shutenduji's face. He admitted that taking a hit of that magnitude was not bad at all, showing more excitement than injury. With surprising speed, the Oni roared that this was a first for him as his massive, clawed hand shot out and completely enveloped Abel Leon's head. He lifted the warrior off his feet with ease, swinging him through the air with brutal, overwhelming force. The motion culminated in a devastating slam, smashing Abel Leon into the ground with enough power to shatter the earth itself. He endured a brutal, relentless pummeling from the massive Oni, each of Shutenduji's fists crashing down with enough force to shatter the ground beneath him. As the Oni continued his assault, he roared with glee, promising that Abel's ugly face was about to get even worse. But his next punch was stopped short, caught in a surprisingly firm grip. Abel Leon, with a calm command, warned the Oni not to touch him so casually. The King of Destruction revealed himself to be completely unscathed, his expression one of sheer annoyance as he effortlessly held back the Oni's immense strength. With a swift motion, he retaliated, launching a powerful strike that sent the massive Shutenduji hurtling backward through the air, crashing violently into a nearby building. The shockwave of the impact was felt by the distant onlookers, Hayato, the Takamiya sisters, and their butler. The blow left a trail of destruction, carving a path through the urban landscape. From their vantage point, Hayato and his companions could only watch as dust and debris settled over the battlefield. Amidst the wreckage, Abel Leon examined his now torn shirt with mild irritation, lamenting that he had really liked the outfit and declaring that Shutenduji would pay for it. The Oni, recovering from the blow, acknowledged Abel's power, remarking that this must be what it means to be the Absolute. This display of casual, overwhelming power left Hayato stunned. He questioned what the deal was with this Leon character, admitting to himself that he never expected him to be this strong. He continued to watch the two titans, realizing that under normal circumstances, Abel would have already been crushed by Shutenduji's initial onslaught. The only reason the Oni was still standing was because Abel was holding back. The realization struck him with urgency. He turned to Akai, insisting they needed to leave immediately. The reason, he explained, was that their presence was forcing Abel to restrain his true power. The security leader complains that the Absolute's attack has totaled all their cars. Beside him, the butler, Ikkaku, calmly acknowledges the situation. In response to their predicament, a sleek vehicle materializes from thin air directly in front of the assembled group, which includes Yanagi Hayato and the hired thugs. The security leader expresses his admiration for the slick ability. Ikkaku, unfazed, gestures towards the newly appeared car and tells everyone to hop on. He then turns his attention to the Takamiya sisters, already inside, telling the young ladies that they must leave as well. Hayato moves into the driver's seat. From his position, he glances back, noticing their unease. He asks Haruka if something is wrong. She looks down, her voice trembling as she explains that her legs are frozen with fear and she cannot move. Reacting instantly to her paralysis, Hayato leaps from the car. He sweeps both Haruka and her younger sister, Runa, into his arms, apologizing for his forwardness as Haruka lets out a cry of surprise. He carries the two girls away from the vehicle as Akai instructs everyone to hold on tight, announcing their departure. As he moves to safety, his eyes meet those of Abel Leon. The now shirtless warrior gives a brief wave before turning his back, refocusing on his opponent. Meanwhile, the scientist observing the battle declares the situation troublesome and instructs Shutenduji to prioritize their retreat. The Oni turns to face Abel, who senses the shift in their intent. As his allies retreat, the Oni, Shutenduji, clicks his tongue in frustration. He declares that his objective remains unchanged, to seize Takamiya Runa, implying he must now act alone. He is stopped short by Abel Leon, who blocks his path. With a casual air, Abel tells him not to walk away, remarking that the party is just getting started. Shutenduji can only stare in surprise. He turns his head, a wide, predatory grin spreading across his face. With chilling confidence, he utters a two-word activation phrase, Leo. Lion Palace. A sudden, immense pressure erupts from Abel, causing the air itself to crackle. Shuten Duji's eyes widen in alarm as he braces against the explosive release of power. The source of this power becomes clear as intricate, black armored gauntlets rapidly materialize over Abel's hands and forearms, ending in sharp, menacing claws. With the transformation complete, Abel flexes his newly armored hands. A wild, eager grin lights up his face as he roars, "Let's do this!" Amidst a swirl of dust and raw power, Abel Leon faces the imposing figure of Shuten Duji. A confident smirk plays on his lips as he declares that the real fun is about to begin. As he prepares to move, a shadowy observer issues a warning, telling him to know his place. Unfazed, Abel clenches his armored fist, his grin widening as he announces, "Here I come." In response, Shuten Duji lets out a wild, mocking laugh, daring him to try. The Oni bellows, roaring that he should not be underestimated. Abel vanishes and reappears in an instant, his fist connecting squarely with the side of the Oni's head in a blur of motion. The blow sends a shockwave through Shuten Duji. His eyes widen in disbelief as he processes the attack, realizing with astonishment that his opponent is insanely fast. Before he can react, Abel strikes again, this time from a low angle that should have been impossible to see. The shadowy observer is stunned, questioning how he could have attacked from a total blind spot. His gauntlet hands flex, crackling with contained power as he prepares to unleash another devastating strike. He drives his fist upward in a brutal uppercut, the impact exploding against Shuten Duji's jaw with concussive force. The sheer force of the blow sends the massive Oni stumbling backward, his foot digging a deep furrow into the ground as he struggles to remain standing. Shuten Duji clutches his shoulder, his expression a mixture of pain and shock. He realizes he can no longer feel his left arm, and it dawns on him that the last two hits were on a completely different level from anything he's faced before. He demands to know what Abel is talking about. From a distance, Abel confirms the rumors are true. He can indeed read his opponent's moves ahead of time. The revelation leaves Shuten Duji speechless. He then elaborates with a confident smirk, stating that his ability, Leo, possesses multiple properties. He details the first property, Foresight, which allows him to see an opponent's movements up to 3 seconds into the future. The second property is Escalation, which causes his physical condition and power to increase drastically as a battle drags on. He likens this Foresight to the way Shuten Duji's alcohol works, a comparison that startles the Oni. He continues, mentioning the final property, Lion's Fury, which he notes is difficult to explain with words. Shuten Duji scoffs, believing Abel is claiming he doesn't even need this final ability to win. Abel calmly confirms that he will not be using it in this fight. He clarifies the reason. If he were to use it, the entire island nation of Japan would sink to the bottom of the ocean. The Oni bursts into laughter, dismissing the claim as an impossible bluff. However, a shadowy observer watching the battle considers the possibility that Abel is not bluffing at all. The shadowy being reflects that this is the nature of the Absolute. They are a collection of monsters just like Abel. As this thought passes, Abel's power visibly surges. He taunts the recoiling Shuten Duji, warning that if they dawdle, he will only continue to grow stronger. He continued to exert his power, and Shuten Duji felt an overwhelming pressure wash over him, a force so immense it seemed to crush his very spirit. The immense force rooted the Oni to the spot. He grunted with effort, realizing he was completely unable to move. It took every ounce of his strength just to remain standing, his feet trembling as they struggled to maintain their grip on shattered ground. Looking up, he saw Abel Leon smirking, who mockingly observed that it seemed the Oni hadn't had enough to drink. Shuten Duji could only stare back, stunned by the sheer difference in power. Abel's power flared as he declared that Shuten Duji would never beat him, not unless he drank enough to guarantee a hangover. He then lunged forward, unleashing an attack named Twin Fong. The blow struck Shuten Duji squarely across the eyes, and the Oni cried out as his vision went dark. Blinded and reeling, the Oni realized with horror that he couldn't track his opponent's movements at all as Abel continued his relentless assault. The force of their clash sent a massive shockwave of energy and debris exploding outwards, visible from a great distance. Bruised and battered, Shuten Duji cursed his opponent, calling him an overpowered freak. Abel, looking completely unfazed, simply gave him credit for one thing, his toughness. With a satisfied smile, Abel declared it a nice workout and leaped away, leaving the defeated Oni on the shattered ground. But as Shuten Duji lay there, a new presence made itself known. An armored, gauntlet arm appeared before him, causing him to look up in stunned surprise. His armored fist slammed, not into his foe, but into the very earth beneath them. The impact erupted, kicking up a massive, blinding cloud of dust and debris that instantly obscured the entire area. When the dust began to settle, Abel Leon stood alone, shirtless amidst the devastation. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, realizing they had escaped using the ability of some kind of mist monster. He considered that he could track them down if he wanted to, but quickly dismissed the idea. He had no obligation to go that far. His thoughts drifted to a past conversation with the boy. Abel had commented on the outrageous fighting spirit Hayato was hiding, though Hayato himself claimed not to know the reason. Abel had simply concluded that as long as that brat was involved, they would figure something out. Returning to the present, a confident smirk played on his lips as he clenched a fist. He found himself wondering how a real battle between them would play out if they ever truly came to blows. He turned and walked away from the scene, supposing that he would get a chance to cross fists with him eventually. That, however, was something Abel Leon had no way of knowing at the time. The future where the two would clash was not far off. Before them stands a large, modern structure, identified by a sign as the Takamiya family shelter. Having reached the destination, Kashiwagi turns to Haruka, who is seated on the ground in exhaustion, and asks if she can get down. She affirms that she can. Nearby, the leader of the hired thug sighs in relief, remarking that they finally made it. He tells her not to mention it, expressing his own relief that they all arrived safely. Just then, the younger sister, Runa, approaches him with a bright smile, clutching her stuffed rabbit and offering a heartfelt thank you. Kashiwagi kneels to meet her gaze. The group is greeted at the entrance by a man in a formal suit, the butler Kai. Haruka formally expresses her gratitude, stating that they owe their safety entirely to him and his group. Standing together, the rescued men reflect on their ordeal. One of the thugs admits they never would have made it if not for the warrior known as the Absolute. The bald security leader agrees, confessing that they honestly did very little themselves. Apart from the others, Kashiwagi's expression is serious. He notes that the sounds of battle have ceased and silently wonders if Leon actually managed to defeat the demon. While Kashiwagi is lost in thought, the butler, Ikkaku, addresses the rescued men. He gestures toward the building's interior, welcoming them to the secure zone and inviting them to go inside. He then notices Kashiwagi lingering behind the group. Seeing his hesitation, Ikkaku turns to him and asks if something is the matter. Kashiwagi meets his gaze and explains that he detected a strange presence on their way to the shelter. He then asks for permission to go and investigate it. Ikkaku considers this for a moment, his hand on his chin. He reasons that since they have made it this far, the young lady should be safe now. He agrees to the request, but advises Kashiwagi to be careful. Alone, Kashiwagi moved swiftly across the rooftops. A sense of unease settled over him. This felt far too easy. He knew it would be a catastrophe if his pursuers managed to breach the facility he had just left. He tried to dismiss the feeling, a bead of sweat forming on his temple as he hoped it was just paranoia. His thoughts were cut short by a low, resonant hum echoing from the distance. He whipped his head around, searching for the source. His eyes locked onto a nearby skyscraper just as a large structure on its roof erupted in a violent explosion. "What the hell is that?" he muttered in disbelief. Before he could process the first blast, similar sounds echoed from all around him, drawing his attention across the cityscape. A cold sweat broke out on his skin as the realization struck him. It's coming from other sides, too. He looked up to see the cause. From multiple points across the city, thin beams of light shot into the sky, converging a single point high above. The beams connected, weaving together to form a vast, translucent wall of energy. A massive rectangular prism materialized in the sky, boxing in a huge section of the metropolis. Staring up at the colossal structure now looming over the city, he could only state the impossible truth. Is this a barrier? His mind raced, piecing together the locations of the energy sources. A horrifying realization struck him as his gaze snapped towards a specific point within the newly formed cage. Wait, he gasped. The center of the barrier is... He races across the rooftops, cursing the situation. From his vantage point, he can see the full scale of the enemy's trap, realizing they have been completely outmaneuvered. Meanwhile, inside the shelter, Ikkaku leads the others into a spacious, high-tech room. He announces that this is the facility's control room, the most secure area within the entire compound, eliciting a gasp of awe from the group. The head of security expresses his surprise, admitting he was unaware such a place existed. Ikkaku calmly replies that he has already deployed defensive barriers around the perimeter, assuring everyone that they are now safe. Just as he finishes his assurance of safety, his phone begins to vibrate. The screen displays an incoming call from Kashiwagi, causing Ikkaku to look on with a puzzled expression. Answering the call, Ikkaku is met with Kashiwagi's frantic report from outside. Leaping between buildings, Kashiwagi urgently explains that a barrier has been erected around the shelter, trapping them all inside. Ikkaku, shocked by this revelation, questions him with disbelief. He asks what Kashiwagi could possibly mean by a barrier, unable to reconcile the news with his belief in their security. From the other end of the line, Kashiwagi insists, telling Ikkaku to stay put and not to leave the facility under any circumstances. He promises he is heading back immediately, leaving Ikkaku to wonder what could possibly be going on. Before the conversation can continue, a piercing siren suddenly echoes through the control room. The security leader shouts in alarm, and Ikkaku explains that it's the emergency siren, which triggers whenever a monster appears in the city. In response to the alarm, Ikkai turns to the main monitor. He announces that he is putting the live feed on the screen, and a bright point of light appears on the dark display, ready to reveal the source of the alert. The image resolves, revealing a shocking scene. The powerful Oni, Shuten Duji, stand with a look of utter surprise, staring at a new, sleek humanoid monster with blade-like arms that has appeared before him. He grins with sharp teeth, realizing they've been played for fools. The thugs watching the monitor with him are stunned, one questioning how the Absolute could have lost, while another points out that the Oni is still very much alive. Elsewhere, a mysterious figure, completely hidden within a dark, hooded cloak, addresses a woman whose face is half organic, half machine. He speaks to her group with a simple, dismissive phrase, "You lot." Back in the control room, Ikkai and the security chief watch the monitor in alarm as the cloak figure is now seen walking alongside Shuten Duji. The security chief realizes they are heading directly for the shelter, understanding that being played and lured was their plan all along. Ikkai tries to remain calm, stating they should be safe inside. Outside, chaos erupts. The hired thugs and other individuals flee in terror from the approaching monsters. Shuten Duji declares that he knows they're being watched from inside, and to prove his point, he snatches one of the fleeing thugs by the head, who lets out a terrified shriek. His voice booms with menace as he issues an ultimatum to those listening. They are to disable the defensive barriers and bring out the brat, or face the consequences. The threat is broadcast clearly into the control room. On the monitor, the captured thug trembles uncontrollably as Shuten Duji holds him. The Oni repeats his demand, shouting for them to hear him and vowing to kill every single one of them if they refuse. A chilling realization dawns on Ikkai. He murmurs that only the Takamiya family and a few select servants know the location of this facility, leading him to the inescapable conclusion there must be a traitor among them. As this thought hangs in the air, young Runa begins to cry, clutching her stuffed rabbit tightly. She whispers that it's because of her ability that everyone is going to suffer, that the monsters are here for her. Ikkai turns to her, startled by her confession. Her older sister, Haruka, immediately pulls the distraught girl into a protective hug. She firmly tells Runa that it is not her fault and that she has done nothing wrong, as Runa sobs into her shoulder, calling for her big sister. Watching the two sisters, Ikkai's expression hardens with anguish and resolve. He internally questions why these children must suffer such a fate simply because of who they are. The butler's fist clenched tightly, his knuckles white. He processed the enemy's words, a stark realization dawning on him. Runa's ability was special. Without a word of explanation, he bolted, sprinting down the corridor. "Ah, Ikkai!" Haruka cried out in alarm, watching him run away. He emerged onto the city's rooftops, launching himself through the air. With superhuman agility, he bounded from one building to the next, a blur of motion against the skyline. Elsewhere, Kashiwagi raced across the rooftops with equal urgency. An explosion erupted in the distance, spurring him onward. He clenched his fist, a desperate plea echoing in his thoughts. Please make it in time. Chaos erupts on a city street as civilians flee in terror. Among them, Kashiwagi runs alongside the two thugs who had previously confronted him, his eyes scanning the area as he urgently asks where the monster is. From a high vantage point, the butler, Ikkai, initiates a citywide broadcast. His voice echoes through the streets, ordering an immediate evacuation for all citizens and repeating the grave news. 3 S-rank monsters have appeared in the city. His announcement sends a fresh wave of terror through the fleeing crowd. One of the thugs cries out in disbelief, wondering if this is the end of Japan, while his companion remarks that 3 S-ranks at once is unheard of. As Ikkai observes the city's panicked state, a sudden, violent explosion erupts nearby, drawing his immediate attention. He whips his head around, his gaze locking onto the source of the destruction. With grim certainty, he identifies his targets. The view from above reveals the full scale of the invasion. 3 monstrous figures, a hulking Oni, a silent cloaked being, and a menacing cyborg, carve a path of destruction through the streets as terrified citizens scatter in every direction. In the midst of the pandemonium, a small boy trips and falls to the pavement. The massive Oni, Shuten Duji, looms over him with a cruel smile, bellowing for the brats to reveal themselves or he will begin slaughtering civilians. The boy looks up, his face a mask of pure terror. He seizes the boy by his shirt, lifting him into the air. The Oni speaks with false pity, stating the boy has done nothing wrong. But if someone must be blamed, it should be the Takamiya family. As he raises a hand to strike, a sharp voice cries out, "Wait." Ikkai steps forward, positioning himself between the monsters and the fleeing civilians, including Haruka and Runa Takamiya. He shouts for everyone to run while he holds the attackers off. Shuten Duji's eyes narrow in recognition, identifying Ikkai as the sand user. The Oni glares down at him, growling for him to move. Unflinching, Ikkai stands his ground. He declares that he will not let the monster pass, nor will he allow him to continue tormenting the young ladies. As the two face off, the cyborg figure coolly addresses her companions as boys. In the background, the panicked escape continues. Shuten Duji merely sneers at Ikkai's defiance, retorting, As if I care. The Oni, Shuten Duji, gazes down at the fallen butler and issues a simple, brutal command to his companions. Kill him. The cloaked figure and the cyborg woman stand ready to carry out the order. Sekai, still on the ground, knows the truth of his situation. He understands with grim certainty that he has no chance of winning against such overwhelming power. His thoughts drift to the young lady Runa. Her fearful expression, a painful memory. He realizes with a pang of guilt that it is because of his own dangerous ability that everyone he protects is put in harm's way. This realization hardens his resolve. He clenches his fist, determined that if he cannot win, the most he can do is buy some time to ensure Lady Runa doesn't have to suffer anymore. With a surge of power, he leaps to his feet, unleashing a torrent of sand from his hands. He shouts his new purpose, to save as many lives as he possibly can. The swirling vortex of sand rushes towards the three S-rank monsters, kicking up a blinding cloud of dust and debris across the ruined landscape. As the sandstorm approaches, the cloaked figure calmly observes the attack and utters a single, cryptic word, 0. In that instant, a massive explosion tears through a nearby, high-rise building. A projectile of pure force erupts from the blast and slams directly into the cyborg woman. Sekai stares in utter shock at the unexpected intervention. He recognizes the attack's unique properties, wondering aloud how its trajectory could have possibly shifted right before impact. The cloaked figure, however, seems intrigued. Sekai realizes the figure had muttered something just before the blast, while the cloaked being itself forms a smirk, wondering if this new, powerful attack is the result of some unknown ability. As the cyborg monster stands amidst the wreckage, several large steel beams begin to float around her. Sekai watches with wide-eyed astonishment, realizing the unseen attacker must be a manipulation-type user. In an instant, the beams hurtle through the air, converging on the cyborg with immense speed. Watching the scene unfold from a distance, young Runa's eye widens in terror as she lets out a silent, horrified cry. The steel beams coalesce into a single, gigantic hammer that smashes down upon the cyborg. Sekai is stunned, realizing the attacker can not only move objects but also create weapons from them. He grunts, bracing himself against the shockwave of the devastating impact. The sheer force of the blow sends the cyborg careening downwards, crashing violently into the ground far below. A cloud of dust and debris erupts from the point of impact, obscuring the aftermath. Standing amidst the settling dust, Sekai clutches his arm, realizing with grim relief that the encounter was too close, but he somehow survived with only a shattered limb. His moment of reprieve is cut short as the cloaked figure addresses him from above, its voice dripping with contempt as it questions if Sekai truly knows his own limits. Nearby, Shuten Duji grins with malice, declaring the humans are idiots for coming to a place like this just to die. Despite the Oni's taunts, Sekai grits his teeth, sweat pouring down his bruised face as he stands his ground, refusing to yield. From a distance, Takamiya Haruka watches in horror, her voice choked with fear as she cries out Sekai's name. Behind the gate, the butler stands alone against the two imposing figures. Her security detail rushes to pull her and her younger sister, Runa, to safety, urging them away from the confrontation. Meanwhile, Sekai takes in his surroundings, realizing the force of the earlier blast had thrown him all the way back to the gate of the emergency shelter. His resolve only seems to amuse the horned monster, Shuten Duji, who dismisses the girls as brats and commands Sekai to shut up and stay away from them. As Haruka screams for him to stop, the Oni lunges forward, roaring that once he kills the butler, the girls are next. Bracing for the fatal blow, Sekai believes this is the end. In that final moment, his only thought is a regretful wish. He wanted to see their smiles one last time. But the blow never lands. A massive, shadowy clawed hand intercepts the Oni's fist, shattering it on impact and sending the powerful monster reeling backward. Stunned, Sekai opens his eyes, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief as he stares at the unfolding scene. He looks up to see Yanagi Hayato standing before him, now clad in a simple cloak. Hayato apologizes for his late arrival and calmly states that he will handle the rest. Sekai, recognizing him, can only stammer his title, Lord Cashaway. He looks forward, a confident smile spreading across his face as he speaks a single, cryptic word, Mars. In response to his utterance, a blinding flash of power erupts from his body, blasting outward with concussive force. The cloaked figure is caught directly in the blast. While he remains perfectly still, the sheer force of the energy wave sends the cloaked figure hurtling backward, its dark form tumbling through the air. The sudden display of overwhelming power leaves all onlookers, the Oni Shuten Duji, the butler Sekai, the Takamiya sisters, and their security chief, completely stunned. Sekai stares, a gasp of disbelief escaping his lips. His gaze fixes upon a detail that has just become visible. On Hayato's uniform is a crest, a stylized, winged creature within a shield. A flicker of recognition crosses Sekai's face as he realizes its significance. The crest confirms his identity. Now clad in the official uniform of the Special Countermeasures Unit, Yanagi Hayato stands with a new, imposing presence. Behind him, a colossal, winged spectral guardian manifests. He formally announces himself, Special Countermeasures Unit, Yanagi Hayato, and declares his mission, commencing enemy extermination immediately. In the aftermath of a massive explosion, 3 new figures, a hulking Oni, a cloaked entity, and a female cyborg, confront Yanagi Hayato. He stands bewildered, clutching a massive, newly formed spectral weapon, questioning what is happening. Beside him, the butler Ikkaku apologizes for keeping him in the dark, as the Takamiya sisters and their security detail watch the chaos unfold from a distance. Ikkaku calmly states that he understands the situation. He promises to explain everything after dealing with the new threats and instructs Hayato to get behind the barrier for now. Hayato, still confused, begins to ask about the abilities of the new monsters. Ikkaku interrupts, addressing him formally as Master Yanagi, a title that catches the young man by surprise. Across the rubble, the cloaked figure expresses its irritation, complaining about the pestilent lot that has appeared after their encounter with the Absolute. Shuten Duji, the Oni, muses aloud, wondering if he correctly heard the mention of the Special Countermeasures Unit. The cloaked figure declares it will handle the fight, but the cyborg immediately counters, claiming the task for herself. Their bickering is cut short by Shuten Duji, who pounds his fist into his palm and declares that he will be the one to crush their opponent. He dismisses his comrades with a click of his tongue, telling the cyborg to focus on healing the wound she received from Absolute. With grim determination, he announces his intention to end the battle in a single strike. As the cyborg walks away, Hayato turns back to Ikkaku and thanks him. The butler offers a formal wish for good fortune in the coming battle. His attention is suddenly wrenched away as the cyborg's hand dissolves into a stream of glittering, sand-like particles. Hayato stares, utterly baffled by the sight. He quickly realizes it isn't sand. Ikkaku explains that the cyborg creates weapons, but the mechanism behind this ability is unclear. The explanation triggers a horrifying realization. Hayato's eyes widen in shock as he connects the information to his own situation, stammering, "Wait, is that?" His horror was justified. The cyborg had finished her creation, a massive railgun, a super electromagnetic cannon, now aimed and ready. He stared, aghast at the sheer scale of the weapon. He couldn't believe it. That crazy bastard had actually created something so powerful. Without a moment's hesitation, she fired. A blinding torrent of electromagnetic energy tore through the air, hurtling towards its target. The blast slammed directly into Shuten Duji, who could only let out a guttural cry as the immense force struck him. As the impact reverberated, the cloaked figure spoke a single, chilling word from beneath its hood. 50. The word sent a jolt of alarm through Hayato, though its meaning was unclear. His eyes widened, trying to process the unfolding devastation and the cryptic comment. Before he could fully comprehend it, the secondary shockwave from the impact hit him, sending him flying backward. The projectile didn't stop. It carved a path of pure destruction, vaporizing the ground and structures in a long, explosive trail. Scrambling on the ground amidst the fallout, he looked upon the utter devastation. The power was absurd, he realized, but the nature of that attack confirmed his terrible suspicion. His mind raced, processing the information from the attack he had just narrowly avoided. The cyborg's ally, the cloaked figure, was the one responsible for the metallic projectiles. It was forming weapons from iron sand, using an ability to generate magnetic fields and control metal at will. Magnetic manipulation. Despite this crucial insight, he inwardly cursed, admitting to himself that he still couldn't get a full read on the figure's capabilities. As the dust from the blast settled, the cloaked antagonist stood impassively, its power still a mystery. He pushed himself to his feet, his expression hardening with resolve as he contemplated how to handle the situation. Before him, the group of antagonists, Shuten Duji, the cyborg, the cloaked figure, and the amorphous blob, stood united and ready. Meanwhile, watching from the relative safety of a nearby building entrance, a group of onlookers debated. One of the hired thugs suggested they should jump in and help, but was immediately rebuked by his companion, who warned it would be instant death. Hattori Suzuna grimly added that even the Special Countermeasures Unit might not stand a chance. Takamiya Haruka voiced her own theory, suggesting that Hayato was probably trying to stall for time until reinforcements could arrive. From his position among them, Abel Leon watched the standoff with skepticism. He couldn't fathom that Hayato actually believed he could defeat so many powerful enemies on his own. Back at the confrontation, the amorphous creature addressed Hayato directly, its voice dripping with condescension. It admitted to being mildly surprised that he had managed to dodge the railgun blast. The cyborg reinforced the taunt, her tone utterly dismissive. She stated that no matter how much Hayato struggled, he possessed no means of defeating their combined power. Her declaration drew a surprised reaction from both Shuten Duji and the blob creature. A faint, confident smirk touched Hayato's lips as he countered with a question of his own. "What makes you think you've already won?" The question ignited Shuten Duji's fury, and he roared, "Can all you do is bark?" Hayato met the Oni's rage with a cold, unwavering gaze. He hated the murderous look in the creature's eyes, the certainty that it could kill him. His quiet response cut through the tension. "Because I can kill you." He calmly addresses the hulking Oni, his voice steady as he tells the fool to know his place. The demonic figure can only grunt in surprise at the young man's audacity. As his words hang in the air, a brilliant flash of light erupts from his position. He invokes a name, Takamikazuchi. The sudden display startles the other antagonists, who watch with wide eyes as the energy intensifies. From the heart of the blinding light, the hilt of a Japanese sword begins to materialize, crackling with nascent energy. The light fades to reveal a complete katana, hanging suspended in the air before him, its polished steel gleaming amidst arcs of residual power. Without hesitation, his hand closes around the hilt, his grip firm and resolute. The instant he takes hold of the weapon, the Oni flinches, a jolt of alarm running through him as he senses the sudden shift in power. An immense, overwhelming aura erupts from Hayato, blasting outwards with incredible force. The Oni stares in disbelief, shouting out in shock, Was this aura? He now stands transformed, the katana held ready at his side. Behind him, a colossal, spectral warrior materializes, a silent, imposing guardian wreathed in crackling energy. His expression is one of cold, unwavering focus, mirroring the stern, powerful gaze of the spirit looming behind him. Despite the incredible display, Shuten Duji lets out a derisive laugh. He scoffs, just because you're holding a sword. The Oni's dismissive expression vanishes, replaced by a flicker of surprise as he takes a half-step back. With the spectral warrior's spirit mirroring his movements, Hayato explodes forward, closing the distance in an instant. As he charges, his voice cuts through the air, low and filled with cold fury. He declares that the time has come for monsters who wield such crude and reckless power to finally know regret. In response to the challenge, Shuten Duji's face contorts with rage. He bellows that Hayato has not challenged a mere monster, but has incurred the wrath of a god. Unfazed, Hayato meets the roar with a sharp, predatory grin, his eyes gleaming with battle lust as he prepares to strike. From across the ravaged ground, Shuten Duji bellows at his opponent, demanding that the wretched scum repent for wielding a power he can barely comprehend. In the distance, the cloaked figure and the cyborg woman watch the confrontation unfold. The target of his rage, Kashiwagi, remains unfazed, his expression hardening with resolve. As the spectral form of a warrior god materializes behind him, he declares that his foe has invoked the wrath of a god, prompting Shuten Duji's face to contort with fury. He lunges forward, becoming a blur of motion as dark. Crackling energy swirls around him and his drawn blade. The blade connects, slicing across Shuten Duji's chest. The Oni grunts in pain from the swift, powerful strike. After the attack, Kashiwagi stands, catching his breath. He internally acknowledges the immense power flowing through him, realizing that controlling it is a nightmare and that he still hasn't fully synchronized with it yet. This power is that of Takamikazuchi, the strongest war god of Japanese mythology. Wielding the blade inscribed as Chidori, he reigns supreme with a single swing wrapped in violet lightning. Speaking through Kashiwagi, the spirit of Takamikazuchi expresses disgust, finding it pathetic that he allowed a being like Shuten Duji to merely dodge his attack. The Oni glares back, his hand clenching into a fist. In response, Shuten Duji lets his gourd fall and shatter on the ground. He then scoops up the spilled liquid and splashes it over his own face. A surge of power courses through the Oni. He roars, his muscles bulging and his aura flaring violently as he challenges his opponent to feast their eyes on his true might. As energy crackles around him, he begins to unleash his own technique, his voice booming, He roars, declaring his power is at 100% as he lunges forward. The immense force of his charge blurs the space between him and Kashiwagi, his fist connecting with a powerful impact. As the Oni's fist closes in, Kashiwagi's hand tightens on the hilt of his blade. Shuten Duji, confident in his attack, shouts that he can see his opponent clearly and that this is the end. But his punch doesn't find its intended target. Instead, it strikes something unseen, creating a flash of light upon impact. Stunned by the miss, the Oni looks around in confusion, questioning where his opponent has vanished. He finds his answer too late. Kashiwagi now stands behind him, having delivered a devastating slash across the Oni's back and chest. Shuten Duji can only stammer in disbelief as his body begins to fail. From its hidden vantage point, the shadowy observer is stunned, realizing that Kashiwagi dispatched a fully powered Shuten Duji with startling ease. This unexpected outcome enrages the cyborg observer. Her hand crackles with dark energy as she furiously demands that Kashiwagi be silenced. Unfazed by the threat, Kashiwagi turns his attention to them and calmly asks who will be next. In response to his challenge, the cyborg raises her arms to the sky. A vast arsenal of swords materializes from nothing, forming a deadly rain poised to descend upon Kashiwagi and a cloaked figure standing nearby. He remains perfectly still, his gaze fixed upward, calmly assessing the storm of blades suspended above him. As the blades begin their descent, the cloaked figure standing near Kashiwagi speaks a single, cryptic phrase, 100. The deadly barrage hurtles towards its target. He hangs suspended in the air, caught off guard as dozens of summoned swords pivot and lock onto him as their sole target. From the ground, he looks up as the shadowy observer gloats. It declares that leaping into the air was a tactical error, as the blades will now relentlessly pursue him until his heart is pierced. A smirk crosses his face as a realization dawns on him. Nearby, Shuten Duji watches with a look of surprise, while the cloaked figure calmly states the number of blades, 50. In response to the count, the shadowy observer roars for him to be skewered, and the 50 swords plummet towards their target. His eyes narrow with intense focus, betraying no fear in the face of the lethal barrage. He unleashes a new technique, Yamata no Orochi. From his body, multiple spectral serpent heads erupt, each one striking and shattering an incoming sword with perfect precision. The cloaked figure watches the display, noting Kashiwagi's incredible speed. It begins to analyze the nature of his opponent's true ability. The figure identifies the ability as probability shift. It explains that this power allows Kashiwagi to manipulate any event directed at him, fundamentally altering the probability of outcomes to his own advantage. Realizing his ability has been exposed, Kashiwagi lunges at the cloaked figure, blade charged with energy. He resolves to eliminate his opponent before the figure has a chance to counter his probability-altering power. He stands resolute, the spectral form of a warrior spirit materializing behind him. The cyborg, witnessing this, realizes his power transcends all expectations. Recognizing the immense danger, she shrieks an order to kill him immediately. In response to her command, a new threat manifests on the battlefield. A colossal, armored dragon golem forms from dark energy, its immense frame towering over Kashiwagi as Shuten Duji observes from above. The golem's massive jaw opens with a guttural roar, gathering destructive power within its maw. It then unleashes a devastating blast of energy, engulfing the area in a chaotic explosion of force and debris. From its hidden vantage point, the shadowy observer grins with malevolent glee, commanding its target to be turned to dust. Meanwhile, the group of onlookers, Haruka, Runa, Suzuna, Abel Leon, and their security chief, watch in absolute horror, their faces etched with shock at the overwhelming display of power. But as the smoke begins to clear, Kashiwagi stands firm and unscathed. The spectral warrior behind him has formed a protective barrier, deflecting the full force of the dragon's blast. His hand tightens on the hilt of his sword. He calmly commands his blade to cry out in triumph. His eye glows with focused power as he utters the name of the technique that gathers lightning in his hand, Chidori. He then unleashes its ultimate form, Raikiri. A blinding spear of lightning erupts from his blade, piercing straight through the dragon golem's core in a spectacular burst of energy. His devastating attack did not stop with the golem. The Raikiri surged onward, engulfing the Oni, Shuten Duji, who roared in agony as the divine lightning tore him apart. As his form began to dissolve, a single, disbelieving thought echoed in his mind. He questioned if he was truly fading away, even with all his immense power. His disbelief curdled into pure rage. With his last moments of existence, Shuten Duji let out a final, guttural curse, screaming, "Damn you!" as he disintegrated into nothingness. With the Oni vanquished, Kashiwagi stood alone in the quiet aftermath, the massive spectral form of the warrior god Takamikazuchi looming protectively behind him. He looked upon the spot where his enemy had vanished, his expression cold and unwavering. With a slight smirk, he questioned the empty air. Why the bitterness? The spirit of Takamikazuchi, his voice resonating with ancient power, provided the answer. He declared that the defeated should feel honored to meet their end at the hands of a god. The god's judgment continued, echoing through the space. It was a far greater reward, he stated, than scum like the Oni deserved. Moments later, the battleground, now a quiet street in front of a modern estate, Kashiwagi slid his sword back into its scabbard with a decisive click. Behind him, the spectral form of Takamikazuchi finally faded away, its duty done. Amidst a field of rubble and debris, Yanagi Hayato stands alone, surveying the aftermath of the intense battle. The modern building behind him is damaged, but standing, and a faint arc of light lingers in the sky, a testament to the power that was just unleashed. He turns, a faint smile touching his lips as he reflects on the necessity of using his ultimate ability, Takamikazuchi, for this fight. On the ground behind him lie the defeated, motionless forms of the monstrous Shuten Duji and the cloaked figure. From a safe distance, two observers watch in stunned silence. The man in the beanie exclaims that it has to be a joke, while the security leader can only ask if Hayato truly won. Further back, Abel Leon's group, including the Takamiya sisters, looks on. The sound of automatic doors sliding open with a sharp clatter cuts through the quiet aftermath. Hayato lets out a quiet sigh of relief. Nearby, Abel Leon's face is a mask of pure shock. From a distance, Hayato stands tall, his gaze fixed on the group of onlookers. He clenches his trembling hand, acknowledging internally that the recoil from his ability is severe. Abel rushes to his side, grabbing his arm in disbelief. He points out that Hayato is completely unscathed, stammering that he is speechless at the sight of him taking down 4 S ranks alone. Hayato calmly tells him that it isn't a dream. Abel, however, remains lost in a daze, admitting that it feels like one and that he is still trying to process the unbelievable event, unable to even find the words. As Abel stands stunned, Haruka and Runa Takamiya approach him, each placing a gentle hand on his arms. Haruka softly tells him he can feel their warmth, grounding him in the reality that they are safe. Runa beams with a bright, relieved smile, and Haruka's expression softens into one of profound gratitude. The sisters offer their heartfelt thanks to Abel Leon. Watching them from short distance, Hayato sees Abel become overwhelmed with emotion, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. He offers a simple, smiling reply, telling Hayato, "You're welcome." He then explains his actions, stating that he couldn't risk blowing his cover if he wanted to lure out the true mastermind. Apologizing for hiding his identity, he looks towards Hayato and the others, acknowledging the truly terrifying power the young man possesses. Hayato calmly declares that his part in the operation is now finished. The mention of a mastermind catches Abel completely off guard, his expression shifting to one of pure confusion. Meanwhile, at a large, stately building nestled within a forest, another part of the plan is unfolding. This is the Kongu estate. Inside, Kongatakaru walks down a sterile corridor, lost in thought. He wonders if things are proceeding smoothly on Yanagi's end and questions whether it was too rash to send him alone. He clenches his fist with resolve, accepting that it is too late for second thoughts. The die has been cast. He comes to a stop directly in front of a closed door. As he faces the door, a voice from within remarks that a high-quality guinea pig has arrived. Unfazed, Konga retorts that calling someone a guinea pig upon first meeting is quite rude. The speaker is revealed, a man with long, dark hair, round glasses, and a sinister smile. He is Hisaya Nishida, a former exclusive researcher for the influential Takamiya family. Kongu stands his ground, explaining that they were investigating the source of the information leak concerning Runa Takamiya. He declares that they successfully tracked Nishida down with the assistance of a hyper-perceptive ability user. He continues his accusation, stating that 2 years prior, Nishida staged an accident and faked his own death, all to steal specific equipment from the Takamiya family's research wing. He stood firm as Hisaya Nishida began to confess. The researcher dismissed the Takamiya facility as stifling and dull, admitting the equipment was so magnificent he simply had to take it for himself. He confirmed that the stolen device was specifically for researching multiple ability users. Nishida's face twisted into a wide, manic grin. It was all for the sake of his dream, he proclaimed, to create the ultimate, perfect multiple ability user. In response to this mad ambition, Konga shot back that there was no future in such experiments. Unfazed, Nishida revealed his next crucial step, his eyes gleaming with obsession. He absolutely had to incorporate Runa Takamiya's ability into his design. The researcher waved off Konga's past interference with a smug expression, stating that the incident which led to Runa's death was hardly his failure. Konga's body tensed at the remark. He continued, lamenting that Runa's death was a nuisance because it prevented him from openly researching multiple ability users any longer. He then had the audacity to tell Kongu to shut his mouth. His callous disregard for a life lost pushed Kongu over the edge. His face contorted with fury as he roared, "I'm going to kill you." Nishida simply smiled, his expression a mask of condescending amusement. "You're welcome to try," he taunted. With a theatrical flourish, the researcher threw his arms wide, his voice echoing as he summoned his trump cards. "Alpha, Beta, come to me." But in the moments that followed, nothing appeared. Kongu stood his ground, watching as Nishida's confident pose remained. "What is the matter?" the researcher goaded. "Can you no longer teleport?" Nishida's taunt sparked a sudden realization. Konga's eyes widened as he understood. The trump cards weren't failing to appear. They were in a location from which they had to teleport, a location that was now inaccessible. He pressed the scientist, asking if the things he was trying to summon were the same ones currently attacking the Takamiya facility. In a fit of rage, Hisaya Nishida shrieked for silence. Ignoring the order, Nishida scrambled back towards his control interface, desperately trying to command his assets to return. He realized with dawning horror that they should have already killed the guards and brought the prize to him by now. But on the other end of the connection, there was only carnage. The tattered, blood-soaked remains of his subordinate, Alpha, lay in a heap. The scientist's face contorted in disbelief. It was impossible. Beta was gone too. His greatest masterpieces defeated. His composure completely shattered. Nishida fell to the floor, groveling before Kongu. He begged to be let go, promising he would abandon his research in a multiple ability users forever. Kongu looked down at the pathetic man as the doors to the room slid shut, sealing them inside. He stated coldly that Nishida had no right to beg for his life. Terror seized the scientist. He began to plead, stammering that he didn't want to die. His plea was cut short by a sickening crunch as an unseen force brought down a crushing blow, ending his life in an instant. Konga stood impassively over the result. All that remained were his shattered glasses lying in a spreading pool of blood. Without a backward glance, Konga turned and walked away. He stepped out of the isolated facility, leaving the scientist's dark ambitions and his lifeless body behind. Having dealt with the scientist, he turns his attention to the facility itself. A translucent, hexagonal barrier of energy materializes around the entire building, trapping it within. With a confident smirk, he prepares to act. He points a single finger forward, his expression hardening as he issues a command, deconstruct. Instantly, the structure within the barrier begins to shatter, concrete and steel groaning as they are torn asunder. The foundation gives way completely, the floor fracturing into a web of deep cracks before imploding. The deconstruction accelerates, the building's components breaking down into a cascade of dust and fragments. Moments later, nothing remains. He stands before an empty clearing, the massive facility and all its contents having been utterly erased, leaving only a cloud of dissipating dust. His gaze is unwavering, his features set in cold resolve. He reflects on his purpose, vowing to ensure there is never another victim like Kaori again. This vow fuels his mission. He will erase everything related to multiple ability users. A small, glowing object in his hand vanishes with a faint click, signifying the completion of his task. On a bustling city street, pedestrians cross at an intersection, their conversations buzzing with news from the previous day. The source of the chatter is a large public screen displaying a monster subjugation report. It announces that Yanagi Hayato of the Special Countermeasures Unit has defeated 4 S-rank monsters, including the notorious Shuten Doji. A nearby citizen expresses his relief that the incident didn't occur near his home. The crowd continues to react with a mix of awe and disbelief. One person remarks that while the Special Countermeasures Unit is known to be strong, this feat seems insane. Another wonders if Hayato truly accomplished it all by himself, expressing a desire to see his power level. 2 onlookers debate the news. One scoffs, convinced that there is no way a single person could have done it. The other, however, considers the possibility, pondering what it would mean if it were true. On a television screen, a news anchor elaborates on the implications, stating that if the reports are confirmed, Hayato would be on par with the individual known as the Absolute. The broadcast then shifts, announcing that the World Tournament is only 10 days away. Far from the public eye, the subject of this widespread speculation, Yanagi Hayato, is occupied with a mundane task, vacuuming the floor of a modern, high-rise apartment. He sighs, reflecting on how he finally got a week off only to spend it on housework. Across the room, his sister Ao sits comfortably on the sofa, remarking that a clean room really puts the mind at ease. He retorts that he doesn't want the grand titles people are giving him. He just wants her to help clean. In response, Ao playfully lifts a small black cat, ceremoniously dubbing her brother the Vacuum Master. Ao then dashes away, holding the cat, whom she calls Lewis. She playfully tells the cat that it can't help because it's busy eating. A bewildered Hayato asks where she even found the cat. Crouching on the floor beside the creature, Ao simply smiles and says it's a secret. He stands in his uniform as his sister. Ao asks if he's leaving for another mission. He clarifies that while he received a message to report to HQ, he isn't sure if it's for a mission just yet. Their conversation is abruptly cut short by a loud crash from the front door, startling both siblings and the small cat. In response to the commotion, the front door bursts open and a man is thrown violently into the entryway, eliciting a shriek from Ao. The man on the floor, looking utterly panicked, reaches a hand toward Hayato. It's their father, desperately pleading for his son to save him. As their father scrambles across the floor, a woman appears in the now open doorway. Ao, clutching the cat, recognizes her instantly. The woman's stern voice cuts through the air, asking her husband how many times she has to tell him something. Stepping inside, their mother fixes an icy glare on their father, who is now collapsed on the ground. She accuses him of staring at other women on the way over, demanding to know why he can't keep his eyes only on her. Kneeling before her, their father frantically insists that her accusations aren't true. Unmoved, she continues her interrogation, complaining about his slow replies to her texts and questioning if she even matters to him. He tries to defend himself, arguing that it's tough to keep up with over 100 messages, but he swears that he replies to everything within 10 seconds. His defense is cut short by her sharp glare. She coldly informs him that she didn't give him permission to speak, prompting an immediate and terrified apology from him. Watching the familiar scene unfold, Hayato and Ao are completely unfazed. As Ao smiles softly, Hayato observes to himself that his parents haven't changed one bit. He sits awkwardly with his family in the living room as his mother, a faint smile on her lips, surveys the apartment. She remarks that it's quite a nice place. Ao internally identifies the woman as their mother, Yanagi Akaho. She explains that her mother works overseas with their father and only returns to Japan periodically to help stabilize Ao's own rising power levels. Akaho, meanwhile, simply comments that the view outside is lovely. Her husband, however, is suddenly startled by the small black cat nestled in Ao's arms. He asks in surprise if they're keeping a cat, and Ao calmly confirms that they are. In response, Akaho's expression hardens. She cups her husband's face, her gaze intense, and commands him to look only at her. He stammers in agreement, sweating as he notes that her love can be a bit heavy-handed. As the scene unfolds, Ao reflects that their father, Yanagi Ayatsurishi, has a weakness for women. It's a flaw he brings upon himself, allowing their mother to always have him wrapped around her finger. Hayato speaks up, admitting that honestly, he's the one who is most surprised by the whole situation. His father adds that their mother is incredibly proud that Hayato joined the Special Countermeasures Unit. Hearing this, his mother turns her attention to him with a warm smile. She tells him that if he ever runs into trouble, he should let her know, offering to give him special training. Hayato, taken aback, asks if he is managing his abilities well enough on his own. He forces a smile, stammering out a confirmation as a bead of sweat forms on his temple, clearly flustered by her intensity. Akaho then shifts her focus, asking Ao what her power level is currently sitting at. Ayatsurishi answers for her, stating it's just a little less than 100,000. Surprised by the high number, Akaho apologizes for taking so long to return. As they speak, Hayato gets up, announcing that he needs to head to headquarters soon. His father expresses relief, noting that stopping a rampage at that power level is a real pain and that he's glad they arrived in time. He listens as his parents prepare to depart. His mother, Akaho, expresses her wish that they could all have had dinner together, while his father, Ayatsurishi, notes his son's diligence. As they leave, his father reassures him they will have that dinner eventually and wishes him a safe trip. His mother's final request is for him to take care of Ao. Moments later, Hayato walks toward the towering headquarters of the Special Countermeasures Unit's Japan branch, wondering what business they have with him. Upon entering, he is immediately greeted by Kanga Takaru, who announces he's been waiting for him, addressing him as hero. Hayato, taken aback, questions the new title. Kongu turns with a confident smile, explaining that the public has apparently started calling him a hero now. Leading him down a corridor, Konga listens as Hayato dismisses the notion. Hayato argues that if defeating such opponents makes one a hero, the world would be full of them, though he believes the number of people truly capable could be counted on two hands. He follows, looking skeptical and questioning if Konga truly believes what he's saying. Kongu confirms it, adding that something troublesome is about to begin. As he speaks, Hayato feels a sudden change in the air and realizes a barrier has been erected, understanding that this must be a confidential discussion. Stopping, Konga gets straight to the point. He explains that because Hayato has been branded a hero, certain factions within the upper leadership have started to make moves. He elaborates that Hayato's performance was so spectacular, it has warranted reinforcement requests from nations across the globe. Despite this, the higher-ups in their own unit seem determined to keep him locked down here at all costs. He listens to Kongu Takaru's explanation, a grim understanding dawning on his face. Kongu confirms his suspicion, stating that the political factions are acting not for the citizens, but for their own self-interest. As Hayato processes this, he briefly wonders what could have happened in Konga's past to give him such a cynical view. Kongu continues, adding that some of the higher-ups are truly rotten to the core. He then delivers the grim consequence of this political maneuvering. From now on, no matter how much Hayato achieves, his results will be officially suppressed. Kongu clarifies the stark reality of the situation. It means Hayato will be nothing more than a puppet for the higher-ups for the rest of his life. Though Kongu acknowledges that a vessel of Hayato's caliber isn't meant to be contained, Hayato's expression hardens. He looks directly at Kongu and declares that he absolutely refuses such a fate. His defiance is met not with resistance, but with a proposition. Kongu explains that while they cannot fight the leadership through standard channels, there is one way to silence them. He reveals the plan. In 10 days, a world tournament will be held in America, gathering ability users from across the globe to compete for supremacy. With a serious expression, he adds a critical piece of intelligence. Rumor has it that 2 members of the formidable group known as the Absolute will be participating this time. The name conjures images in Hayato's mind of the powerful Abel Leon and the fierce warrior Mars. He internally recoils at the thought of facing 2 monsters of that caliber. Kongu presents the ultimatum with a confident grin. If Hayato doesn't want to be worked to death by the higher-ups, he must enter the world tournament and defeat the Absolute there. Success, Kongu promises, will mean that no one will ever be able to say a word against him again. He stood motionless, his eyes wide as he processed the weight of Kongu Takaru's ultimatum. The path to freedom was not just about winning a tournament. It was a far grander, more daunting proposition. Kongu's voice rang out with absolute certainty, declaring, "You will become the 9th Absolute." The iconic skyline of New York City rises under a partly cloudy sky, with the Statue of Liberty standing prominently in the harbor. On a bustling city street, a group has arrived. Ao Yanagi, holding her cat Lewis, exclaims that they're in America. She eagerly looks around, wondering aloud where they should go and what famous snacks they should try. Hayato's thoughts drift back to a recent conversation with Takaru Kongu. He recalls Kongu's proposal, that Hayato should defeat an Absolute and claim the title of the 9th Absolute. Hayato remembers thinking that Kongu should show a little gratitude. He had protested at the time, realizing that becoming an Absolute wasn't something one could achieve so easily. Kongu had acknowledged this, explaining that under normal circumstances, it would be impossible. However, he pointed out that there have been rare exceptions where someone claimed the title by defeating a powerful enemy, and that this precedent would likely apply to their situation. Challenging him, Kongu had asked if he wanted to remain a pawn for the higher-ups. With renewed determination, Hayato had accepted the mission, stating simply, "Understood. I'll do it." Back in the present, Ao cheerfully explains to the group that they arrived in America instantly thanks to Syringe's teleportation. She adds that when she told her family about the World Tournament, they decided to tag along, treating the entire affair like a full-blown vacation. Kongu, looking flustered, quickly adds that Hattori Suzuna is with them as well. He stammers that since she travels abroad often, she's been asked to join them as a guide, or so he was told. As the group walks ahead, Hayato's mother, Akaho, asks if there is anything he wants to eat. He looks on thoughtfully and replies that he actually wants to go scout the venue first. Hearing his response, Akaho turns her sharp gaze to Suzuna, asking what she plans to do. Suzuna is taken aback by the direct question, merely letting out a surprised, "Huh?" Following the tense exchange with Hayato's mother, the group's plan for the day begin to form. Suzuna announces she will accompany Hayato, and his sister, Ao, shyly asks if she might also come along to see the venue. He readily agrees with a warm smile. His sister, visibly relieved by his acceptance, seeks final confirmation, asking if it's truly all right for her to join. From a nearby doorway, his mother gives her assent, instructing them to meet back at the hotel once they have finished looking around. The tournament venue looms in the distance, a colossal, modern arena set against the city skyline. As they approach the structure on foot, its immense scale becomes even more apparent. Suzuna remarks that it's massive, with a capacity of 60,000 people, while Hayato comments that the sheer size makes the thought of walking around it feel exhausting. Her train of thought is suddenly broken. With a start, she exclaims that in her distraction, she completely forgot to give him something important. Hayato turns to her, confused. She presents him with a simple, metallic band. It is a translation ring, she explains, a device that will interpret any language he hears and simultaneously convert his own speech for others to understand. He stares at it, incredulous, wondering aloud if such a feat is truly possible just by wearing it. Sensing his skepticism, Suzuna's expression hardens slightly as she asks if he doubts her. She points toward the nearby hot dog stand, challenging him to test the ring by placing an order. Flustered, he quickly tries to backtrack, insisting that isn't the case. He steps up to the counter and, holding up 2 fingers, tentatively orders 2 hot dogs. To his astonishment, the vendor smiles and confirms the order without hesitation. Hayato is stunned that the device worked perfectly. Beside him, Suzuna beams with pride, and he privately notes how pleased with herself she looks. He and Suzuna are stopped in their tracks by a familiar voice. Hayato's eyes widen in recognition, while Suzuna looks on with a puzzled expression as the person calls him a kid. The speaker, a confident young man with light-toned hair, takes a bite of a hot dog before casually introducing himself with a single word, Leon. The 3 of them now stand together on the sunny promenade, the unexpected reunion hanging in the air. Leon smiles, remarking that it's a small world to run into him in a place like this. Suzuna, surprised, asks Hayato if he knows him. Hayato confirms they met briefly during a guard mission, quietly adding that Leon is an absolute. His gaze fixed on Hayato, Leon addresses him directly by name. He continues, confirming Hayato's full name and revealing that he saw the reports on the monster subjugation. Leon recalls sensing an abnormal fighting spirit from Hayato during their previous encounter, admitting that he's actually quite skilled. Leon then discloses that during that incident, he had only planned to take down 2 of the targets, but someone allowed the ogre and missed to escape. Hayato listens, startled by this new information. With a casual grin, Leon dismisses the complication, saying it was fun and that he wasn't worried since Hayato was there. Hayato is internally aghast, realizing he will never understand the thought process of an absolute. Changing the subject, Leon asks what they are doing in America, cheekily suggesting it's a romantic getaway for Hayato and his girlfriend. The question catches both Hayato and a blushing Suzuna completely off guard. Utterly flustered, Suzuna waves her hands in frantic denial, shouting that she is not his girlfriend and that they are not in that kind of relationship. Yet, as she stood by, able Leon's sharp intuition was confirmed with a smirk. Startled, Hayato clutched his chest and defensively declared that he had come to participate in the tournament. He smiled, revealing that he had a feeling something interesting was about to happen. This feeling solidified into a confident grin as he voiced the implication. It meant he might just get to fight Hayato. The sudden challenge left both Hayato and Suzuna momentarily stunned and speechless. Regaining his composure, Hayato confirmed his suspicion, asking if Leon was the participating absolute they had heard about. He processed this, thinking that he would have been surprised no matter which absolute showed up, but that this specific encounter might actually be a stroke of luck. His reasoning was clear in his mind. He had seen how Leon fights, but Leon had never seen him in action. This knowledge gave him a huge advantage. As Hayato strategized internally, Leon turned his attention to Suzuna, asking if she was also participating. Flustered, she waved her hands dismissively, insisting she was only there for moral support. He then playfully suggested that if Hayato gets knocked out early, she should cheer for him instead. Hayato immediately interjected, stating firmly that he wouldn't lose that easily. With a sharp look, Leon warned him that he had better not. A final match between himself and someone named Jack would be far too predictable. The name Jack hung in the air. Hayato's expression hardened as he processed the implication, wondering aloud if this meant Jack was also involved. Beside him, Suzuna voiced her shock, questioning the name. A confident smirk spread across Leon's face. In that moment, Hayato's suspicion solidified into a stark realization. Jack was the second absolute, participating in the tournament. This meant two of the world's most powerful individuals were gathered at this very location for the competition. Meanwhile, on a high-rise balcony overlooking the city, the man in question, Jack, stood with his hands on his hips, gazing out at the view. One of his companions, a woman in a wide-brimmed sun hat, remarked that it was surprising to see him participate in such a tournament. She added that, for her part, she had simply decided to trust Leon's intuition for once. His other companion, a woman with wavy hair, chimed in. She conceded that while the outcome seemed obvious, one never truly knows until they try. She then mused that there might even be someone out there stronger than either of them. As he began to walk, Jack considered her words, murmuring about that very possibility, before dismissing it with a confident smile. The chance of such a person existing, he concluded, was close to zero. This was the self-assurance of the absolute rank 5, Jack Grant.